Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fan fiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
So now that I'm a ninja, I don't have to hide my skills, asked the young blonde boy. He had near shoulder-length, shaggy, dirty blonde hair with two bangs framing his tan face with three faint whisker-like marks on each cheek. He wore a tight-fitted, sleeveless, soft leather turtleneck vest that was usually unzipped at the neck. He wore matching black pants that were tied off at the ankles with white bandages. He had two matching kunai holders that had room for scrolls on both legs along with black, fingerless gloves with a metal plate on top and matching elbow guards. Instead of the normal blue sandals, Naruto wore black ones. It was all very fashionable, but no one knew that Naruto's wardrobe was not of his choosing. His best friend had picked out everything for him after the time that she saw him in a neon orange jumpsuit. When she saw that monstrosity, she no longer trusted Naruto to pick out his own clothes. Yes, Naruto-kun, you no longer have to hold back, though. I'm not sure that you really tried, Hiruzen Sarutobi said, giving the 13-year-old boy a mocking glare. While Naruto had agreed to stay in the dead last position, he occasionally flexed his muscles to make sure everyone stayed away from Hinata. Apparently, Naruto had taken his words to heart when he had said that people might come after Hinata because of Naruto. At first, Hiruzen had been angry with Naruto. He had completely undermined Hiruzen's true intentions. However, Naruto never displayed his true strength, he never went all out. He simply let people know he was better than he let on. It wasn't uncommon for academy students to hide their true skills. They would one day be shinobi, and shinobi used every hidden ace they could find. Though, they typically came from clans, but Hiruzen hoped they would think Naruto was doing the same. Hiruzen knew that was pushing it to the point of breaking, but as long as no one knew just how far Naruto was ahead, he should be safe from Danzo's clutches. Sweet, Naruto said, giving the Hokage a lopsided grin. And I did too try. It's not my fault that I'm just too amazingly powerful to keep all my skills hidden, he said flippantly. While it was mostly a joke, there was still a measure of truth in there. He did occasionally slip up over the years, and people now knew that he was keeping his strength hidden. Hiruzen chuckled. I'm sure that's the case. Now, when you do decide to show off, try not to overdo it. I really don't need more paperwork, Hiruzen pleaded. He felt like he'd been at this blasted desk for so long that they might as well attach it to him. When have I ever overdone anything? Hell Week. Hiruzen deadpanned with no small amount of annoyance in his tone. Hell Week was a week-long holiday that Naruto invented to celebrate a momentous realization he made when he was 8. He finally realized that since he didn't care what people thought of him, he never had to bother to censor himself. He could say every little thing that popped up in his head and do anything he wanted that wasn't illegal, though he did most illegal things as well. That was how Hell Week was born. It was a week full of pranks on everyone and everything. No one was safe and nothing was sacred when it came to Naruto's pranks. Last year alone, he vandalized the Hokage monument 5 times, arranged a group gathering of unattractive people to surround the Hyuga compound when they trained their all-seeing eyes, dropped off unsolvable puzzles at the Nara household causing Shikaku to have a small breakdown when he couldn't solve one of the puzzles, released the several hives at the Aburame clan compound, gave the Akimichi food poisoning, and arranged a swarm of aphids to be released into the Yamanaka flower shop. He pranked Jounin as well. He stole a certain masked ninja's favorite book and held it for ransom. Instead of currency, he made Kakashi do embarrassing things in public, one of which was making him wear his eternal rival's green jumpsuit. He arranged accidents and closed every dango shop in Konoha. You could hear Anko's cries across the village. He pranked ANBU as well. He paint-bombed their bases and training grounds. He even went as far as writing their names on their masks. He had also unknowingly pranked a root base as well. He had decided that their plain white masks were too boring and took the burden to decorate the masks. It had nearly given Danzo a heart attack when he had heard about that. It had gotten so bad after the first Hell Week that Hiruzen used it as training for ANBU, to better their reaction times in case of terrorist attacks. The victims, and there were many, called for Naruto's imprisonment. What he was doing must have been highly illegal, right? It was. However, they couldn't imprison Naruto simply because Naruto left no evidence. I'm afraid I don't understand what you mean, Gigi. I know nothing of this Hell Week, Naruto said innocently, no small amount of pride in his voice. He absolutely loved Hell Week. Oh, I'm sure you're innocent of all charges, Hiruzen replied sarcastically, but in a loving tone. He knew that Naruto didn't just celebrate when he realized he could do what he wanted, it was also one of the ways he flexed his muscles. He knew it wasn't a coincidence that Naruto smote those in particular that had been mean to Hinata during that year. Sure am. Now I do believe that you owe me money, Gigi. Naruto held his hand out expectantly. He was waiting for the pay for his first A-ranked mission. Mizuki had tried to convince Naruto to steal the Forbidden Scroll and learn a single jutsu from it. He had agreed when Mizuki said he could guarantee that Naruto would end up on the same team with Hinata. But instead of sneaking in to steal it, Naruto walked into the Hokage's office, told Gigi what Mizuki was planning, and the Hokage allowed him to take the scroll. Naruto had gone to the clearing and decided to take a peek at the Forbidden Scroll, completely unprepared for what he was going to see. When he read the first jutsu, he didn't know what to make of it. Here was the jutsu that he had been using to help him train for years, he honestly thought he had made it up himself. He couldn't think for a possible explanation for the fact he knew a jutsu that already existed. Naruto thought about his odd instincts and called them into question. Over the years, he knew it was incredibly strange that his body knew how to do things that he had never heard of. How did he know how to throw a kunai when people tried to teach him wrong? How did he master taijutsu styles and kenjutsu styles with complete ease? How in the hell did he know a jutsu that already existed? He couldn't think of an answer. Naruto was strongly considering asking the Hokage what was going on, but he wanted to dig around a little first. If he couldn't find anything, then he would certainly ask Gigi. Naruto had beaten up Mizuki with frightening ease and returned the scroll. Which is why he was about to get paid. Hiruzen smiled as he tossed a scroll over to Naruto. There's your pay for your first unofficial mission, although I'll put it in your file as an official A-ranked. Try to spend some of it on something other than food, the Hokage said, making a quip at Naruto's S-rank status in the Akimichi Book of Eaters. Naruto's workout regimen was awe-inspiring. Even Guy and his clone had blanched when it came to the pure insanity that Naruto did every day. Because of this, and the resistance seal that he had developed, the calorie intake he had to maintain was unbelievable. Naruto, on average, ate around 12,000 calories a day to stay healthy. It wasn't uncommon for him to eat out a shop when he visited a shop. In fact, it was so common that restaurant owners actually encouraged Naruto to eat in their restaurant. In the end, he had been right, he now stood at an impressive 4 feet 10 inches. Not bad for a 13-year-old, considering he still had plenty of time to grow. Ha Gigi, very funny, Naruto said as he tucked the scroll in his pocket. Hiruzen was about to reply, but he was interrupted by a child's voice yelling. On guard, old man. Prepare to hand over that oof, the kid yelled as he ran towards the Hokage with a shuriken. Naruto reacted without thinking, he thought that his surrogate grandfather was danger, so he didn't even notice that the attacker was a child until it was too late. He channeled a little bit of chakra from the bottom of his foot and extended it towards the boy's leg. A small phantom hand came up from the floorboards and grabbed the boy's ankle, causing him to fall flat on his face. Naruto blinked in surprise as the Hokage lowered his hat in embarrassment. This was his grandson's third assassination attempt this week. Konohamaru slowly got up as he rubbed his face in pain, feeling incredibly embarrassed that he had tripped over nothing. But he couldn't let people know that, so he naturally blamed someone. You tripped me, he accused Naruto, unknowingly right with his accusation. While Naruto was sorry that he had tripped the boy, even though the boy tried to assassinate Gigi, Naruto was very stubborn. Not the way I saw it, brat. You tripped over your own 2 feet, he lied smoothly. You did too. Konohamaru yelled as he approached Naruto, as if Naruto should back away in fear of his presence. He was in for a rude awakening when Naruto grabbed him by the front of his shirt. "Unhand the honorable grandson," a new voice yelled in horror. Naruto looked over and saw a man swabbed from head to toe in black with matching black glasses. Naruto looked down at the cockily grinning boy in his hands. "What? Not gonna hit me since my grandpa is the Hokage," he said arrogantly. The Hokage lowered his hat so he couldn't be called upon to testify to what would happen next. "You have made a very grave mistake, my grandson. I don't care if he's your grandmother." Naruto yelled as he spiked the boy. It was okay because he was wearing a helmet. Konohamaru bounced as Ebisu let out a distressed cry. He didn't think the demon brat would actually go as far to attack the honorable grandson in front of the Hokage. "Now that's taken care of, I'm off to find Hinata-chan. See ya, Gigi," Naruto said as he brushed past a glaring Ebisu. Naruto could practically feel the hate from behind his glasses. Ebisu looked at the Hokage in confusion. Why wasn't he demanding for that demon's head on a silver plate for attacking his kin? Hiruzen sighed as Ebisu turned his gaze upon him. Like Naruto, he could feel the anger at the blonde coming off Ebisu in waves. "Hokage-sama, that boy just assaulted the honorable grandson." "Oh? I didn't see anything," Hiruzen said in a painfully fake tone. Before Ebisu could respond, Konohamaru groaned as he returned to consciousness. "I see you're awake, Kono-chan," Hiruzen said, using his nickname for his grandson. Konohamaru answered with another groan in pain as he held his head. "Who was that guy?" Konohamaru asked, wanting to know the boy that was different from the rest of the village. Hiruzen smiled at his grandson. "That was Naruto Uzumaki, one of the greatest heroes of this village," Hiruzen said, giving Ebisu a warning look. That got Konohamaru's attention. "Really? What did he do?" he asked excitedly. Hiruzen smiled at him again. "Naruto-kun protects the village from something that could wipe the village away in a second, every single day, and he never gets thanked for it," Hiruzen answered. Hiruzen wondered slightly if he was imparting too much information, but he quickly cast the thought aside. Konohamaru was young and he had been taught that the Kyuubi had died with the Yondaime. He'd never make the connection. Konohamaru's eyes went wide with awe as Ebisu successfully resisted the urge to TSK. Not only was he in the presence of his Hokage, and that would be totally disrespectful, but Konohamaru would ask why he didn't like the brat. Ebisu fixed his glasses. "Come now, honorable grandson. We have training to do," Ebisu said before he noticed that the room was missing a third member. With Naruto. Naruto walked down the street towards a bakery that Hinata visited regularly. She was usually there eating cinnamon buns or other sweet pastries. Turns out, the Hyuga heiress had quite the sweet tooth. Naruto yawned loudly as he threw his arms behind his head, using the opportunity to peek out the corner of his eye, and saw that he was still being followed by a box-shaped rock. He didn't know who was following him, but they were doing a very bad job of it. It didn't take long for Naruto to get tired of his second shadow, so he took to the roofs to lose the rock. Minutes later he approached the bakery and saw Hinata in her usual spot by the window. Smiling, he entered the shop like a regular customer. "Hello Naruto-san. Is there anything we can get for you today?" said an excited, jolly-looking man behind the counter. Naruto shook his head. "No, I'm just here for Hinata-chan," he said, and was almost impressed at how fast the man's face went from being happy to being disgusted by his very presence, though the man did try to mask it. "She's in her usual spot," he said in barely concealed contempt before he went to check on a cake. Naruto smiled as he saw Hinata chowing down on a cinnamon bun, completely ignoring the shocked look she was getting from some newer customers. They had no idea that Hinata never beat around the bush when it came to her favorite food. As she was going to take another large bite, Naruto swiped it out of her hands and slid into the seat across from her with practiced ease. She glared at him, but there was a small smile tugging at the edge of her lips. "Hello Hinata-chan. How are you this fine evening?" he asked as he took a bite out of the stolen sweet. Hinata sighed before she grabbed another cinnamon bun from the almost empty case. I was doing just fine until you showed up, she said sweetly as she too took a bite from her treat. Naruto gave his best friend a foxy grin. Oh? Is that how it is? Fine then, I won't pay for your food then, he said in an offended tone. Hinata's brow furrowed, dropping the long-standing inside joke. Naruto-kun, I asked you to stop stealing. That was the secret to how Naruto paid for his incredible food bills. He would break into the homes of people that had too much money, and to be honest they didn't really deserve it, steal some valuable things, and sell the things on the black market in the red light district. Naruto didn't really see what he was doing was wrong. He was taking from the people that had too much and tried to make his life hell, plus, it gave him good practice with his lockpicking and stealth skills. Naruto held his arms up in defense. I didn't steal anything. I just got payment. Naruto gave his hands a distracting spin and a scroll suddenly appeared into his hand. He didn't use chakra or fuinjutsu, it was, in Hinata's opinion, magic and she never got tired of seeing it. For the A-ranked mission, he finished, grinning like a fool at Hinata's sputtering but happy expression. The Hokage gave you an A-ranked mission? When? What was it? Hinata started to ramble, but was stopped when Naruto raised a hand. No, the Hokage didn't technically give it to me, it was more of a coincidence. Yesterday, Mizuki tried to trick me into stealing the forbidden scroll and when I told Gigi, he asked me to play along to see if Mizuki was working with anyone. I beat him up quickly enough and got my payment this morning, Naruto summarized, but then a puzzled look made its way on his face. Though, something did happen. You know my clone jutsu? Naruto asked Hinata and received a nod. Well, before Mizuki came I looked into the forbidden scroll, and the first jutsu in there was something called the shadow clone jutsu, which is a solid clone purely made out of chakra that can send its memories to the original. Hinata's eyes widened. Naruto had just described the jutsu that his instincts had told him to do years ago. But that, how? Hinata asked in shock. Naruto leaned in, looking serious. I have no idea. I reread the text over a dozen times, it's the same jutsu down to the last detail, Naruto said. I don't know how, but my instincts told me to recreate a jutsu that already existed, a kenjutsu at that. Naruto whispered, conspiratorially as he fidgeted with the black headband on his forehead, mostly concealed by his wild hair. Have you asked the Hokage? Hinata asked, thinking that would be the first person Naruto would go to when it was jutsu related. Naruto shook his head, truth be told he still had lingering fears that Gigi would stop loving him if he proved himself to be a freak. He desperately wanted to ask the old man, but he was only going to do so when there was no other option. Naruto shook his head. I want to dig around a little first before I bring this to Gigi. Hinata's eyes softened as she figured out Naruto's true reluctance, but said nothing. She simply offered a tender smile, letting him know that she would always be there for him like he had been there for her. Naruto was about to say something, but he was cut off when a square-shaped box shuffled a few feet away from their table. Naruto looked down at the box in disbelief. Who in their right mind would design camouflage that bad? It was the same box-shaped rock with the same texture as the gravel outside. Did this stalker really think they were going to fool anyone inside a store? Hinata gave Naruto a curious look. Is he yours? Hinata asked, sending her closest friend an amused look. Naruto looked deep in thought. I don't remember adopting any rocks lately, he said as he threw the remainders of his cinnamon bun at the rock. Why are you following me? He asked before the rock exploded in a colorful explosion of smoke. When the smoke cleared, Hinata and Naruto saw that it was Konohamaru. I see you have seen through my clever disguise, the smaller boy claimed loudly. Hinata chuckled, the little boy was adorable. You're that brat in Gigi's office. Why are you following me? Naruto demanded, though he was slightly impressed that he was able to move. He had slammed the kid harder than he'd meant to. I'm not a brat. Konohamaru yelled in denial. And I was following you because I want you to train me, he said with a cocky smile. No. Konohamaru face faulted. But why? Please teach me, boss, he pleaded to an apathetic Naruto. Naruto rolled his eyes until they settled on Hinata, who was giving him a you-know-what-you-should-do look. He sighed. He could never say no to Hinata-chan. Why do you want me to be your sensei? Don't you already have one? Naruto asked, thinking of the glaring man back in Gigi's office. Konohamaru nodded unhappily. Yeah, but he never teaches me anything good. And he's not a hero like you are, he responded to a now confused-looking Naruto. He didn't remember doing anything particularly heroic lately. Oh? I'm a hero? Naruto asked, wondering where Konohamaru got the idea. The boy nodded, yeah. Gigi told me how you protect the village every day from something that could wipe us away in an instant. He didn't say what though, can you tell me? Konohamaru asked with stars in his eyes. He was currently imagining his new boss felling a giant army of ninja with ease. Naruto resisted laughing at the boy's naivety, but he settled for thumping him on his helmet. Sorry, can't tell you, but I guess I can carve out some time to train you. As Konohamaru began to jump up and down with joy, Naruto looked at Hinata. You want to come along, Hinata-chan? He asked. Hinata shook her head. Sorry, Naruto-kun, but I have a sparring match with my little sister, she said sadly. Hinata always won the matches due to the harsh training she and Naruto had done for years. However, she hated the sparring sessions because she could feel her family being torn apart with each one. Every time she would win, Hanabi would storm off in anger, mumbling "I hate you" the entire way. Father would praise her, which only worsened her and her sister's relationship as he criticized Hanabi. The elders would give her an angry look. They hated her due to not only her friendship with Naruto, but also because she had developed her own style of gentle fist. They thought she was debasing years of tradition. Naruto gave her a knowing smile, causing heat to flood to her cheeks. Sakai, Hinata-chan. Tell Hanabi I said to make sure she keeps her elbows up, Naruto said as he stood up. He had been helping Hanabi with her forms on the rare occasion she caught him and Hinata training. Some would think it would be incredibly odd for a non-Hyuga to help a Hyuga with their stances, but Hanabi knew Naruto helped Hinata with her own style. Naturally, she wanted him to do the same with her. Konohamaru looked between the two. Hey girlie, are you bosses? He held up a pinky. Hinata blushed hard, her vision darkening, but she resisted the urge to faint. Despite being far more confident, she was always reduced to a stuttering fool whenever her romantic feelings for the blonde came up. Naruto had no idea how she felt about him and seemed completely oblivious to her attempts to start something between them. For example, she would accidentally brush his hand, trying to get it through his thick skull that she wanted him to hold it. He would simply mumble a sorry. She thought about simply telling him her feelings, but as stated before, whenever her romantic feelings for Naruto were brought up, she would stutter so bad that even if she did manage to stay awake long enough to tell them, the stuttering was so bad that nobody could have made out what she had said. Naruto's cheeks darkened as well when he heard Konohamaru's foolish words. He did have feelings for his longtime best friend, but he never acted on them. Not only did he not want to make things awkward between him and his only real friend, but also he had heard something called the friend zone and he was certain that's what happened to him. Hinata often referred to him as her best friend, and every guy knew that once you were in the friend zone, it was next to impossible to get out. However, Naruto accepted his fate. It didn't matter if Hinata never returned his feelings, he would stand by her side even if she would eventually have to marry someone else for her clan. He would stand by her side as she said, "I do," and ripped out his heart as she did so. What do you have to go and say that for, brat?" he said with red-stained cheeks. Come on. Let's get your training started, he said hastily as he grabbed Konohamaru by his scarf and waved a quick goodbye to Hinata, all but running out the store. With the Hokage. Hiruzen sat at his desk, his office full of jounin. He puffed on his pipe before saying, "I trust you all know you're here to receive your genin teams," rhetorically. The jounin mumbled hi yes. The majority of them weren't looking forward to taking on a genin team. When a jounin took on a genin team, it usually put their own careers on hold for a while because they had to train the brats that were assigned to them. However, there were two exceptions, Kakashi Hatake and Kurenai Yuhi. Kakashi couldn't feel more excited if he tried. He was finally going to be able to interact with his little brother face to face instead of through scrolls. He was finally going to be able to protect him and train him like he should have been for the past 13 years. Kushina was looking forward to training her surrogate little sister. Eventually, the stress of the constantly disappearing Hinata had been too much for Ko and he had a small breakdown. However, what was more important was that Kushina had taken over the job and saw Hinata as her little sister. She didn't have as much interaction with the girl as she wanted because, like under Ko's supervision, she would run off to train with Naruto, but when the two did interact, you would think that they were actual sisters. "Let's get started, shall we?" Hiruzen said as he picked up the piece of paper that outlined the best-suited teams. While most teams were put together by grades, a few specialized teams were placed together based on abilities and teamwork. An example would be the Inoshikacho team. Team 1. Hiruzen started. Team 7, Naruto Uzumaki, Hinata Hyuga, and Sasuke Uchiha under Kakashi Hatake, Hiruzen said somewhat reluctantly, knowing that he was about to get an earful. He really hated this job. All due respect Hokage-sama, but is it really wise to place Sasuke Uchiha on the same team with Naruto Uzumaki? It is my understanding that the Uchiha does not work well with others, especially not with the Uzumaki, and has a hard time sympathizing with anyone. This would be a serious issue on any team, but with those two, it will only be exacerbated and all three will fail, Kakashi said with mild annoyance in his voice. Sasuke was a bully in his opinion and he would much prefer if anyone other than Sasuke were on his team. Hiruzen sighed. Kakashi, you are the last Sharingan user in this village. You must teach young Sasuke to use it when he awakens it, Hiruzen answered and received an annoyed-looking one-eyed glare in response. Sasuke has no concept of teamwork. He has no concept of empathy. He should be on a team with a genjutsu specialist or a Yamanaka, regardless of his jujitsu. The boy needs mental help that I am ill-equipped to provide. We all know I'm not a mental health specialist. I can certainly take time to train him in the use of the Sharingan, if he ever gets his. But that isn't a good enough reason to screw over two other shinobi candidates, Kakashi stated in a serious tone, shocking a number of the Jonin present. It was widely known that teams passed or failed together. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes at Kakashi. We both know that Naruto is smart enough to see through your test. He'll convince Sasuke to work together with Hinata and himself. And need I remind you that when you take on a genin team that you are allowed no favoritism? You are there to train their strengths and get rid of their weaknesses and bad habits. In the event that they do pass, that is what you will be doing with Sasuke's arrogance, he warned. Kakashi understood where the Hokage was coming from, but he didn't believe it was even possible to rid an Uchiha of their arrogance once it had taken hold. He could only think of 3 Uchihas that he'd ever known that didn't have their clan's signature arrogance: Obito, Shushi, and Itachi. Kakashi fully believed that the sole reason that they had been the exceptions was purely because they had never given into the arrogance. Obito, Kami bless his heart, was a fool before he died and never took anything seriously, and from his few interactions with him, Shushi was the same. Itachi seemed to have astounding beliefs that his clan's teachings were wrong. Although, in a way, Itachi had had a right to be arrogant. However, that was not the sole reason Kakashi didn't want Sasuke on his team. It had been months after the Uchiha massacre that Sasuke finally came to realize what lesson his now deceased kin had taught Naruto when he beat him in a spar all those years ago. His reaction had been something no one had expected. Sasuke didn't care. Kakashi didn't know if the kid had finally become a psychopath or he was simply in denial that his clan could do something so awful, but Sasuke didn't care in the slightest. He apologized, but by no means was it heartfelt, he simply didn't care. It isn't favoritism. I've been following this year's class and I don't even need to test them to know that Naruto and Sasuke will self-destruct as a team, causing untold problems, Kakashi pitched as a last-ditch effort. Hiruzen looked deep in thought. Kakashi did bring up a good point. Naruto and Sasuke could hardly stand to be in the same room with each other. His original thoughts on them being on the same team were that they would both be professionals. They wouldn't let their mutual hatred for each other get in the way of a mission. But Kakashi had reminded the aging Hokage that maybe he was putting a little too much faith in what still amounted to children. Hiruzen sighed. Yes, I see your point. Naruto and Sasuke may not be professional enough to put personal feelings aside for the mission, Hiruzen admitted, cursing his age. Hiruzen had been noticing that he wasn't nearly as sharp as he had been even a mere year ago. He was forgetting little things and unable to see patterns or foresee conflicts like the one that just happened. He could still remember things if they were important enough or if a life depended on it. He could foresee a conflict, but who could know how many moments of clarity he had left? He was being betrayed by his mind and body. If he didn't find a successor soon, then he could only fear the worst. He looked down at the papers again. Team 7 now consists of Hinata Hyuga, Naruto Uzumaki, and Kiba Inuzuka under Kakashi Hatake as a heavy assault/tracking team, Hiruzen stated before he looked at Kurinai, who looked like she was about to explode due to anger. It seems unfair that Kakashi Hatake gets to choose his squad while the rest of our preferences are ignored. I put in a formal request to make a tracking team with Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shino Aburame, Kurinai spoke up, barely masking her anger with forced politeness. Jonin Hatake brought up a valid reason to change the teams. A conflict that I managed to miss because I'm more accustomed to dealing with professional ninjas than academy children, Hiruzen said with an authoritative, angry glare. Further, formal requests are not a guarantee that you will get what you want, and you know that. Team 8 will consist of Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Shino Aburame under Kurinai Yuhi as a genjutsu/tracking team, Hiruzen said sternly in a moment of clarity. Kurinai knew that Sakura had a high aptitude for genjutsu and Sasuke should have natural talent in the field as well. Sasuke could also act as the heavy hitter of the team with the jutsu he ought to learn from Kakashi with the Sharingan. All three of them had potential as trackers, and if Sasuke got his hands on his family's summoning contract with cats, then he could be even better than an Inuzuka. Kurinai nodded, showing that she understood and accepted the change. She would have much preferred getting the team she had requested, but she knew that, unlike Kakashi, she didn't have a valid reason to push for another change. Hiruzen mentally patted himself on the back, proud of himself for defusing the situation. Since Team 9 is still in rotation, Team 10 will consist of Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akimichi, and Ino Yamanaka under Asuma Saratobi as a capture and interrogation team. Hiruzen finished and received a nod from his son. You all are dismissed. With Naruto. Naruto was stretched out on a log as he watched Konohamaru fail yet again at the sexy jutsu. Despite being such a perverted jutsu, it was actually ingenious. Most shinobi were men and men were all perverts, deep down, so it was a great distraction technique. Plus, Naruto could only imagine the amount of chaos Konohamaru would bring with such a jutsu. Naruto smiled slightly at the thought. You got the curvy part right, but they're in the wrong places, Naruto commented again as looked at another failed attempt. Gah! It's too hard. Konohamaru yelled in frustration. He had been at this jutsu for hours. Naruto sighed. Is that the attitude of the future Hokage? Naruto asked rhetorically. Konohamaru had told Naruto his reasons for attacking Gigi daily as well as his insecurities about how everyone saw him as the honorable grandson and not as his own person a few hours ago. Konohamaru puffed his cheeks out in annoyance at Naruto's words before attempting the jutsu again. However, before he did, a voice interrupted him. Honorable grandson. I've been looking all over for you. Ebisu said as he jumped down from a nearby tree. Konohamaru looked shocked then determined. Go away. Boss is teaching me now, he yelled. Ebisu scared at the mention of the Kyuubi Jinchuuriki. Honorable grandson, this boy is nothing but a dead-last fool, whereas I am an elite jounin. I can teach you the secrets and shortcuts to becoming H-. He was cut off by Konohamaru yelling, there aren't any shortcuts. You gotta work hard to become Hokage, and don't call boss a dead-last. He's way cooler than you. Before Ebisu had a chance to defend himself, Konohamaru called out the name of his new technique. Sexy Jutsu. Smoke erupted around the boy, but when it cleared, a beautiful and busty brunette stood in Konohamaru's place. Ebisu took a few steps back but was otherwise unaffected by the jutsu. Honorable grandson, you should not spend any time on such a silly technique, he scolded as he fixed his glasses. Why isn't it working? Konohamaru yelled out as he reverted into his original form. Because he's a closet pervert. You need something with a little more kick to deal with his kind. Naruto answered as he got up from his log. But don't worry, I have a technique that will work just fine on him. I sincerely doubt dash. Genjutsu, pervert's paradise. Naruto called out, using one of the two genjutsu he knew. The effect was immediate. Ebisu trailed off as a huge perverted smile began to form as well as two twin streams of blood from his nose. Naruto walked over and lightly poked the man in the forehead, causing him to fall over while still sporting the full-blown perverted smile. What happened to him? Konohamaru asked, giving his assigned tutor a small kick in the ribs to see if he was really out of it. I placed him in a genjutsu where all of his perverted fantasies will come true. It's very dangerous because once you're in it, you may never want to leave, Naruto answered ominously before he looked up at the sun and saw that it was approaching dinner time. I think that's enough training for one day. Let's get you home, Naruto said as he walked towards the Sarutobi clan compound. Okay, boss. Konohamaru yelled as he quickly followed. With Hinata. Hinata deflected a blow to her stomach and rapidly placed 3 pokes up her attacker's arm, rendering the limb useless. Hanabi jumped back, ignoring her now useless arm. She was about to launch into another set of attacks but she was stopped. That's enough, Hanabi, her father said. Hanabi looked reluctant, but obeyed along with Hinata. Yes, father, they said in unison. Hayashi looked at both of them. As expected, Hinata, you were excellent. You displayed accuracy and speed worthy of being the Hyuga heiress. Hinata nodded in acknowledgement, not looking forward to what would be happening next in the slightest. Hayashi looked at his youngest daughter, who was trying to ignore her tingling arm. Hanabi, your form has a number of holes in it and your speed was lacking as was your accuracy. These may be excused because of your age, but you will not always be young. Train harder. You may not be the heiress, but I will not have a weak main branch member, especially not my own daughter, he said harshly, giving his daughter a disappointed look, a look that Hinata had been very familiar with during the first 7 years of her life. Hanabi visibly winced at every word and answered with a very sullen. Yes, father. If it weren't for her pride, she would have broken down in tears. She always felt like she was in her sister's shadow and, no matter what she did, she wasn't good enough. Good. You two have the rest of the day off. He looked at Hanabi. If I were you, I would use that time to work on the holes in your stances. With that, he walked out of the dojo. Hinata looked at her trembling sister with a soft expression. Hanabi. She said as she reached out to comfort her kin, but her hand was smacked away. Leave me alone. Hanabi yelled as she turned towards the door that led to the training courtyard. I could help you with your training, Hanabi. Hinata called out desperately to her sister, wanting to prevent the rift between them expanding. Hanabi sneered, I don't need you to train me. You're only strong because that Naruto guy trains you, she snapped before storming out, leaving a sad-looking Hinata. Hinata looked at the door her father left out of. Father, don't you see you're tearing our family apart, she whispered to herself as she too left the dojo. The next day. Naruto, Hinata, and Kiba all sat in their empty classroom. Their sensei was more than an hour and a half late. You think since she's known me for years, she wouldn't call me that Naruto guy? I mean, it's kind of insulting, Naruto commented as Hinata told him about how Hanabi had stormed out the other day. Naruto-kun. Hinata said sadly as Naruto's attempt to get her to smile did not work. Naruto sighed loudly. There isn't much you can do, Hinata-chan. You've tried to talk to your father, he won't listen. You've tried helping Hanabi and she hates you for being stronger than her. Naruto trailed off with a shrug. Telling people that there was no way to win wasn't a habit of Naruto's, but he and Hinata had tried everything they could think of to repair the rift in the Hyuga clan. The rift had only grown in the past 7 years and Naruto was at a loss for what to do. Could you try to help her out with her stances more often? She thinks I got so strong because I trained with you, Hinata asked. Hanabi would never admit it, but she put Naruto on a pedestal. She had seen Naruto's insane training schedule once and instantly respected the blonde. She thought he was batshit crazy for doing a third of what he did, but she respected him immensely. Naruto nodded. Yeah, I'll train her when I have time to train Konohamaru. He thought about it for a couple of seconds. That's going to be an amusing couple of hours, he muttered aloud with a chuckle. Hinata smiled warmly at him. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Naruto just grinned back. No need to thank me, Hinata-chan. Wait, you just became a genin. Why in the hell do you get students already? Kiba yelled and got a supporting bark from Akamaru. Naruto seemed to ponder it. Maybe it's because I'm more awesome than you? Or maybe it's because you smell like wet dog, he responded in a mocking tone. Naruto didn't hate Kiba, nor did he dislike him. They had a lot in common: pranks, bunking off in class, sleeping in class, and sarcasm. And they both had feelings for the Hyuga heiress. Kiba had made several attempts to formally court Hinata. He couldn't just ask her out due to them both being clan heirs. But each attempt was sabotaged by Naruto. He would sneak in and wreck his nice clothing, put laxatives in his food, give Akamaru and, by extension, him fleas. The list went on and on. It was to the point that Hayashi had commented that he would never have to act like an overprotective father because Naruto filled that role already. Hinata didn't particularly enjoy the dates with Kiba, or the other suitors, but she could never get out of them because of politics. She was always thankful that Naruto always caused trouble and gave the suitors reasons to cut the date short. Kiba growled, I don't smell like wet dog. But this time Akamaru didn't voice his agreement. Yes, you do. I'm surprised even Akamaru can stand to be near you, he must be a very loyal friend, Naruto shot back in a playful tone. He chuckled when Akamaru barked in agreement. Traitor! I do not smell like wet dog. Tell him, Hinata-chan. Kiba growled again, hoping Hinata would jump to his defense. Luckily for Hinata, the door slid open and revealed a masked Jonin with silver gravity-defying hair. Yo, are you Team 7? He asked innocently, acting bashful and sorry that he was late. He wasn't in the slightest. He had debated showing up on time for once to see his little brother, but he had decided against it. He had an image to maintain. Admittedly, it wasn't a very good one, but it was his reputation and he'd do what he wanted with it. Naruto narrowed his eyes on the man. His voice sounded incredibly familiar, but he didn't recognize the man's eye or hair, since those were the only things on display. Yes. You're late, sensei. Kiba roared, Akamaru barking with his master. Kakashi rubbed the back of his head lazily, a habit Naruto also had. Sorry about that. I had to help an old lady with her groceries, he responded with the same bashful tone. No one in the room believed him, but none of them commented. Well, meet me on the roof, Kakashi said as he shunshined away and went up to the roof. The three genin looked at each other, as if silently agreeing that they had gotten the short stick when it came to senseis, before they got up and made their own way to the roof. At the roof. The three genin took a seat on the steps in front of their new sensei, who was reading an orange book that Naruto recognized. Our sensei is a painfully bad liar and a pervert? Great. He closed the romance novel and looked at his new future soldiers. Now that you're all here, why don't you introduce yourselves? Stuff like your name, likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams for the future, stuff like that, he said lazily. He inclined his head to Hinata, you start. My name is Hinata Hyuga. I like training, cinnamon buns, and Naruto-kun. I dislike perverts and bullies, she gave Kakashi a pointed look, having also recognized the trashy book. My hobbies are training with Naruto-kun and flower pressing, and my dream for the future is to get rid of most of the traditions in my clan when I'm clan head, Hinata said shyly. She didn't stutter, but she was soft-spoken by nature. Kakashi nodded. He knew most of that from trailing the two until last year, but it was always nice to find out by less creepy methods. Naruto decided that he would be going next. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I like training, food in general, the sky, and Hinata-chan, he said, having decided to exclude Hell Week, just in case. I dislike arrogant bastards, confined places, and people who try to hurt Hinata-chan. My hobbies are pranking, training, making new seals, and training with Hinata-chan. My dreams for the future? Become Hokage? No. King of the world, maybe. Naruto asked himself, then he snapped his fingers. My dream is to become Emperor of the Universe, he said with a smile, just now deciding on a dream. It wasn't his true dream. His true dream was to help Hinata accomplish her dreams and protect her until his dying breath. He also wanted to be able to fly. Naruto couldn't explain it, but he always felt drawn to the skies. It had gotten to the point that Hinata once said that she was more used to seeing his exposed neck from looking up than she was to his face. He just felt like he belonged in the skies, not chained to earth by gravity. Kakashi nodded, knowing the dislike of confining places stemmed from his stay with the Uchiha. It tore at Kakashi's heart that Naruto was still dealing with the trauma he had suffered from, but he had expected it. Honestly, if Kurenai had done as much research on this year's Genin as he had, she would have been able to make a compelling case to have both Sasuke and Naruto on her team. But she didn't care about Naruto. Naruto refused to have any therapy sessions, though Kakashi had no room to talk, and refused to open up about what happened in the room. He wouldn't even speak to Hinata about it, as far as Kakashi could tell. Naruto had more or less disappeared for the past year. He would show up for Hell Week or to eat, but other than that could not be found. He even avoided ANBU trackers, some of whom were Inuzuka's. Hinata had known where he had gone, but she refused to tell anyone, even the Hokage. She told them that Naruto was training and wanted it to be a secret. She wouldn't betray his trust. Neither the council nor the Hokage had been happy about that. But it was clear that Hinata would not budge. Hiruzen okayed it as long as he wasn't doing anything dangerous. No one noticed her gulp at that. Kakashi was broken out of his musings when Kiba loudly proclaimed, "I'm Kiba Inuzuka. I like Akamaru, Hinata-chan, and my clan. I dislike having to clean the kennels, my sisters when they annoy me, and people who don't mind their own business," Kiba said as he glared at Naruto, who was looking up at the sky. "My hobbies are playing with Akamaru and training with Akamaru. My dreams are to become the best hunter nin in the village," Kiba said loudly with a feral grin. After Kiba finished, Kakashi began his introduction. "My name is Kakashi Hatake. I don't really feel like telling you my likes or dislikes. My hobbies are my dream for the future. That seems kinda personal, so I won't be telling you that either," he finished with a nice smile. The genin looked unimpressed at the introduction. "We only learned his name," they all thought in unison. "Now that we all know each other, I'm afraid I have some bad news for you. You're not genin yet," he said. Naruto looked impassive, but, on the inside, he was trying to think of what the man meant and Hinata's eyes went wide. "What do you mean we're not genin? We passed the exam," Kiba demanded. Kakashi merely chuckled. That test was merely meant to root out the hopeless cases. Each jounin gives their potential genin team a test. Despite sounding so simple, the failure rate is over 66% and the failures are sent back to the academy, Kakashi said wickedly. Naruto's brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean that they're sent back to the academy?" "I haven't seen any of the kids that graduated back there," he asked. Kakashi nodded. "They get sent to a different academy that focuses more on the physical aspects of being shinobi, but even when they graduate from that academy, they don't get jounin instructors. They get put on reserves until there's an opening in a genin squad or they prove themselves valuable enough to be apprenticed," Kakashi explained with a small shudder, remembering how close he and his team had been to failing their exam. Naruto nodded. That made a lot more sense. "If that's the only question, meet me at Training Ground 7 at 5 a.m. Oh, and I recommend that you don't eat breakfast. You'll just throw it up," he said before vanishing in a swirl of leaves. Naruto sighed as he stretched. "Well, that's a shock. Wanna go get something to eat, Hinata-chan?" Naruto asked and received a nod from his friend. As an afterthought, he turned to Kiba, "You wanna tag along? Since we're teammates now?" Naruto asked with a careless tone. He didn't really want Kiba to tag along, but he figured that he should at least try to get along with the Inuzuka. Kiba shook his head. "I have to train for tomorrow," he lied. He just didn't want Naruto to mess with him before the exam tomorrow. The next day, Naruto was fiddling with two fused chain links that helped with chakra control. They were made of chakra-absorbing metal that would only separate if the user put a very precise amount of chakra into them. Despite being such a simple idea, it worked very well considering you could do it on the move and the amount of chakra would change slightly every time you succeeded. He looked up at his teammates, both of which were leaning up against the tree training poles in the center of a clearing. "I wonder if this is a habit of sensei's." Naruto wondered aloud. Their sensei was almost 2 hours late again today. "I hope not," Hinata said as she got up and stretched. While Hinata was a patient person, this was ridiculous. As if on cue, a swirl of leaves appeared in front of them. "Yo! Sorry I'm late. A black cat walked across my path so I had to take the long way," Kakashi lied, putting no effort in being believable. All three genin sweat dropped. "It's defiantly a habit," Hinata thought sadly. "Now that we're all here, we can begin the test," Kakashi began, as if someone else had been late. "Your goal is to take these bells," he said as he held up 2 bells, "from me by noon today. If you fail to do so, you'll get tossed back into the academy and end up in the reserves," Kakashi said as he tucked the bells through his belt loop. "There's only 2 bells," Naruto deadpanned as he curiously looked at Kakashi. He definitely knew this guy from somewhere. Kakashi beamed at him. "Very good. Point for you. There are only 2 bells, so that means that only 2 of you can pass. The one who doesn't get a bell ends up in the academy," Kakashi explained. Kiba tensed at that. This was his chance. If he could get those bells, he'd give one to Hinata and Naruto would get booted to the academy. That way, he couldn't get in the way between him and Hinata anymore. Naruto's puzzled expression intensified. He knew for a fact that genin teams consisted of 3 genin and a jonin sensei, so why was Kakashi telling him one of them would fail anyway? Would the third member be replaced with a genin that had already failed the exam? Since there are no more questions, begin on 3. 1, 2, 3. 2 blurs escaped into the forest as Naruto remained, still staring at Kakashi with an intense expression. Kakashi met his little brother's glare with an amused expression. "When I said go, you were meant to go," he informed. Naruto nodded. "I know, but I'm trying to figure out where I know you from." "Your voice sounds familiar," he responded, still staring at Kakashi. Kakashi's eye widened slightly. The only times he had ever spoken to Naruto were after he had escaped from the Uchiha torture chamber and once when he was 4 years old and had a nightmare. He had comforted Naruto after, but it took a while. Truth be told, the boy had only calmed down after he left, but he couldn't possibly remember that, could he? After being stared at for over a minute, Kakashi told him that he'd tell Naruto later and the two both got in taijutsu stances, with Kakashi pulling out his book. Kakashi knew that he probably wasn't going to get to read, but a frustrated or angry opponent was a sloppy opponent. The two clashed in midair with furious punches and kicks. Both were mere blurs as they attacked one another. Naruto took a round kick to the jaw and narrowly dodged the left hook that followed. Naruto retaliated with a series of kicks and punches that were so unpredictable that Kakashi thought he would have a tough time predicting them even if he had his left eye on display. However, none of the blows landed and Kakashi even began using his book to block some of the strikes. Naruto blocked a knee to the gut with both his forearms before quickly retaliating with an elbow to the face by a quick twist in his body. Kakashi caught the blow with his hand and placed his book under Naruto's armpit before lifting hard and throwing him across the clearing, immediately putting the book away. As Naruto flew across the clearing, he did a series of impressive mid-air acrobatics to keep facing his opponent before finally facing the ground and a blue phantom hand shot out of his outstretched hand towards Kakashi. Kakashi narrowly managed to dodge the phantom hand. he had been expecting Naruto to use this trick. The Hokage had told him about Naruto's inherited Kekei Genkai and he could only admire the effectiveness of the technique. Kushina's chakra chains had a major flaw that she herself had admitted: her chakra chains couldn't grab onto something. They could wrap themselves around something or pierce it, but she couldn't, for example, catch something that was being hurled at her in midair. Naruto's variation didn't have that flaw. Kakashi blinked in surprise as the one phantom hand suddenly became two, as he was now forced to focus completely on the hands that were trying to grab the bells. He would have used Obito's Sharingan eye, but he knew that revealing the eye wouldn't help the point of the exercise. Naruto chased after Kakashi with his chakra arms. 2 arms weren't even close to how many he could do, but since Kakashi was holding back, he thought he should as well. Earth release, mud wall. Kakashi called out, using the wall to get a small breather from the relentless arms. Naruto smirked as he focused on his chakra at the palm of one of the chakra arms. Kakashi took a deep breath. To say he was impressed with Naruto's ability would be an understatement. He used his chakra arms just as well as Kushina's chains. Then he heard the sound of earth being drilled. Kakashi jumped back moments before a chakra arm wielding a Rasengan burst through his earth wall and narrowly missed hitting Kakashi in the stomach. Kakashi launched back into a handspring and continued flipping until he landed on the lake. He's turned the Rasengan into a long-ranged attack? Kakashi thought in what could only be described as awe. Out of the 3 people that knew that jutsu, only Naruto had succeeded in improving the Rasengan. Kakashi didn't know if he should feel proud of his little brother or feel angered that he was using it against a comrade. Kakashi started to fly through hand signs for water release, water dragon jutsu, but was interrupted by a volley of Senbon being launched at him, 2 of which nailed him in the leg. Kakashi's eyes widened in shock as that leg immediately plummeted through the water's surface. It took him a moment to realize that the Senbon had hit his Tenketsu and that they were laced with chakra. A second later, he was joined by Hinata on the water's surface. Hinata's usual shy look was replaced by a cool and collected mask, ready for combat. Kakashi chuckled as he forced his weight on one leg. "You have incredible aim," Kakashi complimented as he yanked the Senbon out his leg. "I'm guessing that one of the traditions you want to break is your clan being close-ranged fighters," he thought aloud. It had always struck him as odd that a clan full of shinobi that could see miles around them focused on close-ranged attacks. Hinata nodded as she prepared another volley. "I also wish for my clan to become medics. With our Byakugan and chakra control, we could become some of the best," Hinata said as she launched the next volley. Kakashi dodged the Senbon with a series of acrobatics, since he couldn't use his leg, and tried to make his way towards the shoreline. However, Naruto had teamed up with Hinata. Naruto joined the 2 on the water's surface and put Kakashi under pressure. Kakashi was having a hard time keeping up due to one leg being useless on the water. Kakashi realized just how reliant he'd become on Obito's eye to keep track of his enemies when Hinata had managed to sneak up on him with those Senbon. Kakashi dodged and deflected Naruto's attacks and Hinata's Senbon, but eventually Naruto got under his guard when his useless leg tried to support him on the water and he stumbled. Naruto delivered a powerful left hook that Kakashi still batted aside, but was quickly followed by an upper kick to the jaw, sending Kakashi into the air. Naruto flipped in midair, using the momentum of his kick, and as Kakashi began his flight, he reached out and nearly grabbed one of the bells. However, Kakashi saw that Naruto was about to break the test, so he planted his useless foot in the boy's face before falling backwards into the water. Kakashi allowed himself to fall into the water as he calmed himself. He was starting to consider not holding back on these 2, they were pushing him pretty hard. He swam down to the bottom of the lake, dodging past the chakra arms that were trained on him. When he did reach the bottom, he used a supplemental earth jutsu to tunnel through the earth and away from the lake. He surfaced a few hundred yards away from the lake and took the time to test out his leg. As he thought, he still couldn't channel chakra past his knee, but it was otherwise fine. He mentally ticked off the techniques that were now unusable or severely limited: shunshin, enhanced kicks, and surface walking. As Kakashi massaged his leg, he heard a not-so-subtle rustling in the bushes. He sighed but pretended that he didn't hear it. Kiba smirked up in the trees as he watched his weakened sensei try to regain feeling in his leg. It had been purely by chance that Kakashi had resurfaced nearby. Kiba had been watching the battle between Naruto team and Kakashi sensei up in the trees. Kiba had been shocked by Naruto's strength. He knew Naruto chose to be the dead last, but he never thought he would be able to push back a Jounin. Which brought up the question, why was Naruto holding back in such an extreme degree? Why would he stay at the bottom of the class when he could have been at the top with ease? Was it because he wanted to be on the same team as Hinata? He had watched in envy as Naruto pushed back Kakashi-sensei to the lake with those odd chakra arms and that weird jutsu, and how Hinata sunk sensei with her Senbon. I really need to get one of the bells soon if I'm going to be on Hinata-chan's team. Kiba thought worriedly, Akamaru letting out a low whine as if he heard his master's thoughts. It had to be a gift from Kami that Kakashi had surfaced only a couple of yards away from his location, right? Suga. Kakashi looked up in fake surprise as he watched the incoming attack heading towards him. He waited until the very last moment to dodge the incoming death drill by smacking Kiba away with the back of his hand. Kiba went flying to the side and crashed into a tree, breaking it, before coming to a violent stop. Oh? You're out of it already? Guess my team will be Hinata and Naruto, probably for the best. Did you know that it's incredibly common for the female on a team to end up dating or marrying one of their teammates? I guess she'll end up with Naruto, Kakashi said in a bored tone as he once again pulled out his little orange book. He was trying to make Kiba mad, but also dropping subtle hints about the true meaning behind the test. Hinata and Naruto were working together perfectly, but he couldn't pass them unless all of them worked together. Kiba growled like a kicked dog as he got up. Oh yeah? How do you like this? Man-beast clone, he yelled furiously. Akamaru, who was behind Kakashi, suddenly morphed into a perfect copy of Kiba. Gutsuga! Kiba yelled out as he began to rotate. Kakashi didn't need to turn around to know that Akamaru was doing the same. It was the teamwork version of the same jutsu, after all. Both of them shot forward and Kakashi jumped into the air to avoid a collision. Both Kiba and Akamaru both brushed by each other, but didn't harm one another, before they spiraled up a tree to attack Kakashi in midair. Kakashi let out a low whistle as he watched the two spinning wheels of death came at him in the front and behind. He was impressed with Kiba's ability to use multiple clan techniques. Most clan heirs could only use one of their clan's techniques. However, it wasn't enough. Kakashi noticed that Akamaru was a little bit faster than his master was, and Kakashi used that to dissect the jutsu. As Akamaru neared Kakashi, Kakashi placed a foot on Akamaru's side and drove him into his master. The two clashed in midair, canceling the jutsu, and both fell to earth. Kakashi landed gracefully, still reading his little book, before sighing as he saw Kiba was struggling to get back up. You don't really think you can win, do you? He asked in a slightly annoyed tone. If Kiba kept pushing himself, then there was a chance that he would accidentally fail the team because he would be deadweight. Shut up, Cyclops! Kiba yelled as he stood up. He reached into his pocket and took out a small tube of pills. Kiba tossed one of the soldier pills to Akamaru before taking one himself. Kakashi watched in mild interest as Akamaru turned a bloody red and Kiba looked more feral than he already did. Kakashi sighed as he closed his book. You're very stubborn, Kakashi commented. Kiba responded by throwing a few smoke bombs at Kakashi before calling out, Getsuga, again. Kakashi used his earth jutsu again and disappeared beneath the earth's surface while Kiba attacked nothing above him. So I have my little brother, who's a prodigy like no other. I have a Hyuga that broke clan traditions and uses at least one long-ranged ability. And I have an Inuzuka that can use several clan techniques. It seems that I lucked out with this team. If they pass, Kakashi commended beneath ground. When he heard the commotion above stop, Kakashi moved under Kiba and yanked him down until only the boy's head remained before resurfacing. He chuckled at Kiba's expense, who was yelling at him to dig him out. No matter how many times he sees it, it was always funny to see someone buried up to their necks. His amusement did not last long when a volley of sunban turned a nearby log that he had kawarmied with into a pincushion. Kakashi thought it was a little unnerving that they were coming at him hard enough to kill, even though he had forgotten to tell them to come at him with the intent to kill. Kakashi shunshined away, his leg having finally recovered, wondering if the three would team up. Kakashi knew that Naruto and Hinata would be able to get the bells on their own, but he wouldn't be able to pass them as a genin team if they didn't all work together. Naruto and Hinata jumped into the clearing, cursing their luck that they had just missed Kakashi. Then they saw Kiba's head in Akamaru, who was furiously trying to dig his master out. Hinata immediately rushed over and helped digging him out as Naruto fell to the ground laughing. "Oh, that's so rich," Naruto said, still laughing at Kiba's expense. Kiba glared bloody murder at him in response. "Shut it, Uzumaki," he snarled. After Hinata and Akamaru had finished digging out the Inuzuka, Kiba thanked them both, but he claimed that he didn't need their help to get out. After Naruto finished rolling his eyes, he said, "Now that Kiba is out of his hole, we need to discuss something," finishing in his serious tone. Kiba's eyes narrowed. "Yeah? What would I need to talk to you about?" Kiba shot back. He didn't like the fact Naruto was taking charge. Naruto let out a sigh of annoyance. "Teamwork." Hinata quickly took it up from there. "Naruto and I believe that Kakashi-sensei is lying about one of us failing no matter what. So we think we should work together," she explained, calming the Nindog user. "What do you mean he's lying?" Kiba asked, and Akamaru barked the same question. "Hinata-chan said we think he's lying. We're not sure though. I know for a fact that genin teams consist of 3 genin and a jounin instructor dash." "How do you know that?" Kiba cut in, interrupting Naruto. Naruto gave him a dull stare. "The academy. You should know that twice over since you're a clan heir," Naruto said in a flat voice. It was moments like these that he hated being the dead last because, on paper, people like Kiba were considered smarter than he was. That bothered him. Kiba tried to think of an excuse as to why he didn't know that, especially because he actually did know it. He had just wanted to spite Naruto. "Shut up!" Kiba yelled when he couldn't think of a reason. Naruto just rolled his eyes and gave Hinata a look of "Are you sure you want to team up with this guy?" Hinata paused, then nodded. "As I was saying, 3 genin and a jounin. We think that the bells are a lie and the real reason behind the test is teamwork, however, we could be wrong. He may be telling the truth and one of us will fail, even if we get the bells, and a genin from the other academy will replace the one that fails," Naruto explained. Kiba seemed to mull this over. "What if you're wrong? Who fails?" Kiba asked with a challenging tone. He would die before he let Naruto send him back to the academy. Naruto shrugged. "We'll burn that bridge down when we cross it," he answered, fully intending for Kiba to be the one to fail if they were wrong. It was nothing personal, but he wouldn't be able to protect Hinata if she wasn't on the same team as he was. Kiba looked down at Akamaru, who gave a quick yip of his agreement to the deal. Kiba nodded in agreement as well. If Akamaru thought it was a good idea, then it usually was. Hinata smiled lightly as the two agreed to work together. "Good, now, I have a plan." Kakashi's reading was interrupted by a series of smoke bombs exploding all around him. Kakashi sighed as he put up his favorite novel and prepared himself for Kiba's repeat performance. However, something different happened. A volley of Sinban pierced through the thick smoke, none of which hit Kakashi, but it had been close. Kakashi launched himself backwards, hoping to get out of the black smoke before Hinata hit him again. So they're working together? Perfect. Kakashi thought happily as he raced out of the smoke. Once Kakashi escaped the black smoke, he was greeted by several of Naruto's chakra arms. He dodged between them, but it was a mere distraction. Kiba and Akamaru were trying to pierce him while he had been distracted. Kakashi dodged both spinning attacks only to be caught by one of Naruto's chakra arms. Naruto pinned down Kakashi as he used his arms to take the bells. Kiba and Akamaru both let out shouts and barks of joy as Hinata was smiling, happy that her plan had worked. "It seems like we've won, Kakashi-sensei," Naruto said as he led his sensei up, giving the bells in his possession a jingle. Kakashi rubbed the back of his head. "Yes, it seems you have. Now, which one of you will fail?" Kakashi asked in a serious tone, dropping his hand as he stood up. Kiba and Akamaru both stopped jumping for joy in an instant and Hinata's smile dropped. "Why, you mean one of us still fails?" Hinata asked in a small, upset voice. She had been hoping that they all would get to pass. Kakashi nodded gravely. This was his own unofficial test to punish them for actually beating him. They all passed regardless, but he needed to see how far their teamwork went. As expected, Naruto tore the bells in two and tossed one of them to Hinata. Hinata caught the bell with ease but stared down at it in guilt. She glanced over at a crestfallen Kiba and Akamaru. They knew something like this could happen. Kakashi watched proudly as Hinata walked over to Kiba and offered the bell. "You deserve this more than I do. If it wasn't for your smoke bombs, then Kakashi-sensei would have seen Naruto's chakra arms," she lied. Naruto could have gotten the bells with his own smoke bombs and chakra arms, but she knew that Inuzukas had very frail egos. Kiba stared at the bell in shock, then at Hinata, then back at the bell. "Are you sure, Hinata-chan?" he asked, knowing that this was a major deal. He took the bell as Hinata nodded, thanking her with vigor. Naruto suddenly threw his bell to Hinata. "And you need that bell more than I do. I can only imagine the hissy fit that Hayashi will throw if his daughter doesn't pass," Naruto said as he stuffed his hands in his pockets, showing that he wouldn't take the bell back. Hinata still tried, but Naruto refused to take it, even letting the bell drop from his chest to the ground. Then a small silver bell almost hit him in the head, but a small blue hand of chakra that came out from the side of his head caught it. Naruto looked over at Kiba with a puzzled expression. Was he really going to give up a chance to be with Hinata? Kiba kicked up the dirt. "Don't look so shocked, you team. Inuzukas follow a pack ideal and sometimes a member of the pack has to make a sacrifice," Kiba said sullenly, mentally cursing his instincts. Kakashi beamed at his genin. "Congratulations. You all pass." There was silence. "What?" Kiba roared, Naruto and Hinata looking just as surprised as he sounded. Kakashi chuckled. "Yes, you all pass. You actually all passed when you all started to work together, but I wanted to see how far you were willing to go for your new teammates." He gave them all an eye smile. "You all did excellent, and we have our first team meeting tomorrow morning." The shock had worn off by now and Kiba had resumed jumping for joy. Naruto gave Hinata a foxy grin. "Wanna go celebrate?" he asked her. "Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's go get barbecue." Kiba butted in, causing Naruto to scowl. "You haven't been invited yet, Fido," Naruto responded in an annoyed tone. He didn't like it when people disrupted his alone time with Hinata-chan. Not because of anything romantic, it was just that he was comfortable with it being the two of them, having been just the two of them for so long. Now, play nice. However, celebrating does sound nice. As your sensei, it'll be my treat, Kakashi said before Kiba had a chance to respond to Naruto. Naruto's tone completely changed after that, all thoughts of discomfort set aside for a free meal. "Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go eat," Naruto said happily as Hinata thought that their sensei had just made a very big mistake for his wallet. Naruto was staring up at the ceiling deep in thought. He ignored the clicking of the fan overhead. He ignored the drips from his faucet. He ignored the cold chill of the early morning. It was a little past 5 a.m., which was when he would usually be running around the village or doing one-fingered push-ups, but Naruto wasn't in the mood to train. He was too busy thinking of a possible answer for the shadow clone jutsu that he knew by instinct. He was at a dead end. He couldn't think of anything that could possibly explain how he knew it. It just didn't make sense. Naruto groaned as he sat up, not due to soreness, but because he wanted to keep laying down. He placed his feet on the icy floor, not even flinching at the cold, and slowly made his way to the shower. He stripped down, shedding the odd sleeping cap that looked like a dog and matching pajamas that Hinata had gotten him, before getting into the hot shower. Naruto did his best thinking in the shower. Naruto let out a happy sigh as the hot water rolled over his body and let his mind wander. Today would be his first team training session and an overdue talk with Kakashi. They had tried to sneak away from Kiba, but it seemed that the dog had boundary issues. He would loudly call out every time he and Kakashi would sneak away to talk and tried to follow them. There shouldn't be secrets in a pack, he would yell. Naruto told him to mind his business, but Kiba was relentless. Naruto wasn't sure how he felt about Kakashi claiming to have tried to be there for Naruto as a child. For years it had been just him and Hinata, with the occasional visits from Iruka and the Hokage, and that was how he liked it. Despite his seemingly open nature, Naruto could be cold to people other than those three. He would joke around with others, but he had a hard time placing any trust in them. Hinata figured that the cause of this was his stay with the Uchiha, but no matter what she did she couldn't get Naruto to talk about what had happened in the room. At best, she would get a minor detail that he would accidentally let slip, but it was still the one secret between the two. Naruto didn't know what to expect when he and Kakashi finally had their conversation. He let out another sigh as he gave his head a shake, sending water everywhere. He didn't know what to expect, so he wouldn't expect anything. That's how life worked for him. If he didn't hope for anything, then he was never disappointed. That's why he didn't expect for Hinata to return his feelings. She was the clan heiress for the most well-respected clan in Konoha. He, on the other hand, was a clanless orphan and the pariah of the village. Life wasn't a fairy tale. There were rarely happy endings, and even less so for shinobi. Naruto shook his head again, trying to get rid of the depressing thoughts. He turned his attention back to how his day would pan out. After team training ended at 3, he planned an hour and a half to train Konohamaru and Hanabi. He'd normally ask Hinata to tag along, but she'd probably say no because Hanabi didn't want her to see her train. After that, he'd either train some more or hang out with Hinata-chan. Naruto was looking forward to that. Naruto shut off the water and gave himself another shake, getting rid of the extra water before he dried himself with a towel. He was on his way out the bathroom when he paused by the barely fogged mirror. He quickly wiped the fog away and focused on the seal visible on his stomach. The seal was visible at all times now, not just when he was channeling chakra. Kurama had told him during their rare conversations it was because of their friendship? Well, whatever they were, it caused the seal to be visible at all times. The seal on his stomach was the Yandame's last jutsu, and it was a masterpiece. 2 elephant seals on top of an 8 trigram seal, a hack seal method, that not only kept Kurama sealed inside of him but also acted as a filter for the demonic chakra. Naruto understood that part of the seal perfectly. Despite being incredibly, and he meant incredibly, intricate and difficult, all seals stem from the basics. They were just different combinations of formulas and techniques that produced different results. Except for one thing. Straight down the middle, over his belly button and over the spirals of the seal, was a written formula. It was the same color as the rest of the seal and it seemed like it belonged there, but Naruto knew that it was a last-minute addition. What he didn't know was what the fuck it did. Naruto had spent years trying to decrypt this small formula, but there was nothing even remotely similar to it in the history of Fuinjutsu. What was worse was that Naruto couldn't even find a scrap of the basics in the formula. It was like it was written in its own language of Fuinjutsu and he didn't have a key. He could find nothing on it. Ought, bagatelle, blank, cipher, diddly, insignificancy, not, nihility, nix, no thing, nobody, non-being, non-entity, non-existence, not anything, nothingness, not, nullity, obliteration, oblivion, scratch, shutout, trifle, void, wind, zero, zilch, zip, zippo, zot. Naruto glared at the figures written on him. He had the feeling that they were the answer, or at least part of it. He didn't know how he knew, but it seemed like the most likely culprit. Naruto let out a sigh. He knew from experience that glaring at the seal wouldn't reveal its secret. Naruto quickly finished drying off before he went to get dressed. He glanced at the clock and saw that it was a little after 7:30. Naruto blinked in surprise. He had been in the shower for over 2 hours. He cursed to himself before grabbing his equipment and jumping out the window, grumbling that he missed breakfast all the way to the training ground. With Hinata. Hinata was awkwardly eating her rice at the family table. Her father and sister were eating with her. Hinata's eyes flickered over to the empty space beside her father and felt a pang of sadness in her heart. Her father had left the spot open since her mother died and refused to let anyone else take it. Hinata missed her mother. She missed the hugs, she missed the kind smiles, she missed her patience when Hinata was trying to learn a new skill. Hinata missed everything about her mother. In her eyes, she couldn't ask for a better one. However, Hinata stopped mourning her mother a long time ago. Death was unavoidable. As depressing as it was, everyone dies eventually, and that was just the cycle of life. Birth, living, death. Hinata no longer mourned the loss of her mother because she understood that it was simply her mother's time. Did she wish that she had longer with her? Of course she did. But she knew that everyone had a limited time on Earth and her mother's time had ended. Her father, on the other hand, still mourned the loss of his wife, her mother, terribly. She understood his loss, but Hinata could not understand how he dealt with his lost love. She could not excuse him tearing apart her family because he was unable to cope. She could not excuse him undercutting Hanabi's confidence, like he had once done to her, simply because he didn't like weakness. Despite her father's praise, Hinata had grown distant from her father. Even more so than when he had ridiculed her. She saw how empty and pointless the praise was when it came at the expense of Hanabi's confidence. Hinata now thought herself a fool for ever wanting her father's approval. "Hinata, I understand that you have your first team training today," Hayashi said in monotone as he put down his now empty rice bowl that a branch member then took. Hinata resisted a scowl as she watched one of her cousins be treated like a mere servant but nodded. "I know you'll show that you are worthy of being the Hyuga heiress," Hayashi said, like that was the highest praise imaginable. Hinata managed a stiff nod, although, truth be told, she felt insulted. She did not view her clan as great. They enslaved their kin and were arrogant and foolish. Hinata knew that her clan had great potential and she fully intended to tap into that potential when she was clan head. "I'm training with Naruto," Hanabi blurted, hoping for a mere scrap of the same approval that her sister received. Hayashi nodded in acknowledgement, though his facial expression did not change. While he didn't like Naruto personally, he knew he owed a great deal of Hinata's growth to the Jinchuuriki. "Good, maybe he can help you with the holes in your stances, and mind your manners. You are a main branch member. Act like one," Hayashi said in a cold tone. He didn't like the thought of a non-Hyuga helping his daughter with her gentle fist, but he couldn't argue with results. Naruto had turned Hinata from a failure into one of the most talented Hyugas in several generations. He didn't exactly approve of her changes to the gentle fist, but he liked them better than the alternative. He tried to pry the training method in the full style written out of Hinata, but she stubbornly refused. No matter how hard he pressed, she would simply say that he would see when he retired, and she became clan head. With any luck, Hanabi would receive the same training as Hinata and she would tell him. Hanabi's eyes brightened. While her father's tone was cold, he had shown an inch of approval and that made her hungry for more. Hinata stood up and picked up her empty bowl. "I have to leave for training, father," she said before turning to her sister. Naruto-kun said to meet him at the training ground 7. "I know you'll do great, Hana-chan," Hinata said with a smile, hoping that her encouraging words would mean something to her sister. They did not. Hanabi glared at her sister, thinking Hinata was mocking her, and said, "Of course I'll do great. I'll do better than you, sister." Hanabi snapped, spitting out the last word with venom. Hinata wanted to cry that she couldn't even encourage her baby sister without her thinking it was ridicule, but she didn't. She choked back her frustrations and went to the kitchen to deposit her bowl before leaving for the training grounds. With Kiba. Like Hinata, Kiba was eating breakfast with his family. However, unlike Hinata, there was no awkward tension. That was replaced with dogs barking and siblings arguing. Sounds to me like that Kakashi totally kicked your ass. Hana laughed as she poured another bowl of cereal. She had discovered it on a mission a year ago and faithfully ate it every morning since. A tick mark covered Kiba's face. He did not kick my ass, he denied with Akumaru supporting the lie. He just, Kiba trailed off, unable to think of an excuse for how badly Kakashi manhandled him. Totally and utterly demolished you? Hana finished with a feral grin as she saw her sweet little brother flounder. Of course she knew that the odds of Kiba managing to lay a hand on Kakashi were slim to none on a Kakashi's worst day, but she loved giving Kiba a hard time. Mainly because she enjoyed seeing him frustrated. It was immensely amusing. It could never be said that it was boring at the Inzunka clan house, or quiet, for that matter. It sounds like you got your butt handed to you and the only reason you passed is because of Naruto, Hana said in a teasing tone, responding to something Kiba had said, and Kiba scowled at that. He just got lucky, that's all. I didn't need the Baka's help. Plus, I gave him my bell. So I'm the reason he passed. Kiba yelled angrily, though he knew it was a lie. He knew that if it had been just him and Hinata, then odds are they wouldn't have passed because he would have charged in and been incapacitated. That would have left Hinata on her own against a Jounin. Kiba knew Hinata could handle herself, but odds are she wouldn't have lasted in the long run. Naruto really didn't need them there. From what Kiba saw, Naruto could have gotten the bells on his own, and the only reason Kiba was a genin was because Naruto got the bells and Hinata's kindness. Speaking of your teammates, you never told us what you think of them, Kiba, Sum said, speaking for the first time. Kiba scratched his head and thought. Well, Hinata-chan. He trailed off with a blush. Tosum and Hana both rolled their eyes at Kiba's train of thought. Mom means deeper than you think. Hinata's hot, idiot, Hana informed and got an agreeing nod from her mother. Kiba wanted to snap, but held it in. He knew from experience that his sister and mother were easy to anger in the mornings. Basically, she's really nice and a bit shy, but she has a pretty big ambition. She wants to get rid of most of her clan's traditions. She's already broken one of them when she used Sunban to take out Kakashi's leg. That was pretty cool, and I'm guessing that she has a few more tricks up her sleeve, Kiba explained. Hana and Sum's opinion of Hinata skyrocketed with that information. The Inuzukas and the Hyugas had a bit of bad blood between them, even though they were commonly paired together for tracking teams. The Inuzukas had a strong distaste for the Hyugas because of how they treated their kin. Inuzukas believed in the pack ideal, a trait gained from their partners, and it sickened them to no end that the Hyugas enslaved their branch members. The Hyugas in return disliked the Inuzukas because they thought they were dog-worshipping Neanderthals. They were immensely happy that a Hyuga was finally seeing just how twisted their clan was and were going to do something about it. She also really likes cinnamon buns, and she smells like flowers, sweets, and Naruto. He added that last part somewhat reluctantly. Despite sounding so creepy, smelling someone was common for an Inuzuka. You could find out just as much, if not more, about a person than you could gain by talking to them. Hana and Sum shared a look and Kiba blushed in anger. Get you minds out the gutter, pervs. We're 13. They just spend a lot of time together, that's all, he yelled in frustration, having recognized the look shared between the two. Hana chuckled. I dunno, Kiba. You are technically adults now, Hana said in a sing-song voice, enjoying the look of jealous anger that flashed across Kiba's face. Kiba shook the thought of Hinata and Naruto, together, away. They're just friends, Kiba ground out. His family chuckled at his expense before Sum asked, what about the blonde? What's your take on him? Kiba scowled at the thought of Naruto, especially so soon after the mental image he had just had, but he sighed instead of getting angry. Naruto's an alpha, he started in a resigned tone. He knew it would be pointless to hide that fact. Hana's eyes widened at the admission. Despite sounding like a trivial thing, being an alpha was a big deal in the Inuzuka clan. Their clan was constructed under a pack hierarchy. The alpha example, Tusum. Alphas lead a pack, they are the strongest and born leaders. The beta example, Hana and Kiba. Betas did the grunt work and obeyed their leader, much to Kiba's annoyance. Lastly, the omega. They are loners who don't work well with the pack and aren't strong enough to form a pack of their own. If Naruto was a born alpha, then that meant he outranked Kiba when it came to team decisions. Hana was shocked by Kiba's admittance because she knew Kiba desperately wanted to be an alpha. He hated taking orders and being submissive to anyone. Really? Continue Kiba, Sum commanded, much more interested in the conversation now. Okay. I knew that Naruto was holding back in the academy. I remember when he broke Sasuke team's arm, but I had no idea how much. Naruto probably didn't even need us there. I'm sure he would have gotten the bells on his own with enough time. He's incredibly protective of Hinata-chan. Hana laughed at that, remembering how Naruto put laxatives in Kiba's food to cut his date short. He's a bit of a dick, but I guess that's because he doesn't have a pack of his own, Kiba thought aloud, unable to think of a time Naruto had been with anyone except for Hinata. He smells weird though. He smells like a fox, but he also smells like a bird. Like a hawk or something. Sum frowned at that. She knew why Naruto smelled like a fox, but she couldn't think of a reason for why he would smell like a bird. Unless he had one as a pet, there shouldn't be a reason for him to smell like any kind of bird. Her musings were interrupted as Kiba let out aloud, "Oh crap, I'm gonna be late," as he quickly scarfed down his food and bolted to the door. Remember to talk to Kakashi about signing the dog summoning contract. Hana yelled at her little brother and received an "I'll remember" in return before being followed by the door slamming shut. At the training field. The three new teammates all arrived at the same time at Training Ground 7. Hinata and Naruto greeted each other warmly before Kiba and Naruto nodded stiffly at each other, neither entirely sure how to greet one the other. Kiba because of Naruto's alpha vibe. Naruto because he had very limited interaction with his own gender, not counting fights or pranks. They walked towards the three training posts together and sat in silence, waiting for their sensei to arrive. Normally, Naruto and Hinata would talk, but Hinata was in a bad mood because of breakfast. From experience, Naruto knew to give Hinata her space as she thought about the issue. Unfortunately, mornings like that happened very often in the Hyuga household. Naruto was silent because he was thinking about Kakashi, even though he tried to focus his mind on other things. Kiba was playing with Akumaru, so he didn't even notice his team's silence. Unlike before, they didn't have to wait for hours for their sensei to show up. A swirl of leaves later and their masked sensei was standing before them. "Yo," Kakashi greeted. Normally, Kakashi would have spent an hour or two at the Kia Memorial, telling Obito and Rin about his day and how he thought it was going to play out, but he decided to do that earlier in the morning today. That way he didn't have to wait to have the long overdue conversation with Naruto. Kiba blinked in surprise. "You're on time today," he asked out of surprise before narrowing his eyes in suspicion. "Is this going to be an everyday kind of thing, or are you going to go back to your lame excuses tomorrow?" he asked, hoping it would be the former. Kakashi's exposed eye looked a bit miffed. "My excuses are not lame, and yes, I'll try to show up a bit earlier," Kakashi responded, knowing that by showing up earlier he would lose sleep, though it didn't make much of difference since Kakashi hadn't gotten 8 hours of sleep in years. Hinata's dark mood brightened a bit after hearing that, not by much, but she sported a small smile. "Now, I got a very basic idea of your skill levels yesterday, however, they are not complete," Kakashi began, then turned and looked at Naruto and Hinata. "Both of you used water walking, so I'm sure it's safe to assume that you mastered tree walking as well," he asked and received nods from both. Kakashi looked at Kiba, his eye asking the same question. "No, I've started it, but I haven't made it past the halfway mark yet," Kiba admitted, feeling a bit insecure that he was already so far behind his teammates. Kakashi nodded. "Hinata, could you use your Byakugan to help Kiba with the exercise?" he asked and received a second nod. "While you two do that, Naruto and I will practice taijutsu elsewhere. That way we won't break your concentration," Kakashi lied. Kiba nodded and headed over to the closest tree, believing Kakashi's lie. Hinata soon followed after him, but she was wondering why Sensei would use such awful excuses when he could lie well. Kakashi motioned Naruto to follow him and they traveled in a heavy silence for a few minutes. They stopped walking when they reached a small clearing deep in the forest. So, I imagine you have a few questions. I promise to answer them to the best of my ability, Kakashi said, breaking the silence that had progressively gotten heavier. Just a few, Naruto said quietly. Despite looking so calm, Naruto's eyes were darting all around, checking that they were alone and that Kakashi didn't lead him away to be assassinated. Kakashi wanted to sigh wearily as he noticed Naruto examining his surroundings. It seems that Naruto didn't fully trust him yet. Suppressing the sigh, he motioned for Naruto to ask his questions. Who the hell are you and why do you seem so familiar? Naruto deadpanned, asking the question like the thought of someone other than Hinata being kind to him was foreign. Kakashi's heart clenched painfully when he remembered that it probably was. Kakashi kept silent for a few moments, trying to think of a way to break the news delicately. I was meant to be your older brother, he said solemnly. Delicacy was for the weak. Naruto blinked a couple of times. Oh, was all Naruto's brain could think to say because it was currently shutting down to process the bomb Kakashi had just dropped. Kakashi nodded. We aren't related by blood or by marriage, but I would have been like your older brother, Kakashi explained further, seeing Naruto's blank look. He didn't know if that was a good or bad sign. If you were meant to be my brother, then why in the hell am I just now hearing from you? Naruto demanded, an angry edge in his voice. While he barely knew Kakashi, and by barely he meant barely, he couldn't help but feel abandoned given the new information. It was odd, considering that Naruto had never met Kakashi until 3 days ago, but he felt like tossed away trash. Naruto hated that feeling. However, much to Naruto's surprise, Kakashi tensed and his one visible eye darkened in anger. I was ordered to stay away from you, Kakashi said through grinding teeth. The councils denied my every attempt to adopt you. I jumped through every fucking hoop they had and they still told me I couldn't look after you. They refused to let me take care of you like family should. When they told me that, I rejoined ANBU and got myself assigned to your ANBU protection squad. Naruto looked shocked. I should have told the councils to go fuck themselves. If I had adopted you like I wanted, then those Uchihas wouldn't have gotten their hands on you. Hell, if I had been your tail that day, then they wouldn't have touched you, Kakashi finished furiously. Naruto was acquainted with lies and masks. He knew from experience that the pure rage in Kakashi's eye was genuine. He knew the authenticity of the self-loathing anger in his stance. Why did they order you to stay away? Naruto demanded, feeling robbed of the chance of a different life. Possibly a better one, if Hinata was still involved. Before Kakashi could answer, a voice answered from the forest. Because my youthful rival would have killed everyone who looked at you in the wrong way. That voice, and there's only 2 people in the world that say youthful, Guy? Naruto asked in surprise. Guy and Naruto had met during one of Naruto's training sessions a few years ago. When Guy got out of the hospital due to dehydration because he had cried for hours on end when he saw Naruto's spirit of youth, they occasionally trained together. That was the extent of their relationship, though it wasn't a lack of trying from Guy. Hello my youthful prodigy dash. Get out of here, Guy, Kakashi growled, already seeing through his friend's sudden appearance. No can do, Kakashi. What kind of rival would I be if I let you risk your neck like this? Guy said as he struck his signature pose. Before Kakashi could respond, Naruto did so for him. What does he mean by you risking your neck? Why do you care so much? Why am I so important to you? Naruto demanded. There was no mistaking the anger in his tone now. Kakashi looked over at Guy and gave him a look of, are you going to try to stop me from answering the T question? Guy hesitated and with his eyes sent the message of you can tell him to a degree it's a secret punishable by death so don't push it. After my father killed himself, your father helped me and became like a new father for me, Kakashi deadpanned, ignoring the warning looks from Guy. Naruto took a step back. My father? Your father. He was a great man. He was terrifyingly powerful, kind and loyal to a fault, and one of the most honorable men I have ever known, Kakashi began to explain, awe in his voice as he thought about his late sensei. Minato had been the man that he aspired to be. Naruto didn't know how to process that. Naruto had a theory of who his father was, and Kakashi was giving him more evidence to support that theory. Who was he? Naruto asked in a quiet voice, wiping the panic on his face that had been there moments ago. He was Kakashi began, fully intending to tell Naruto who his father was and to hell with the consequences. However, he was cut off before he could spill the secret that would cost him his head. Kakashi. That's enough, Guy said, the youthfulness gone from his voice and was replaced by a hard tone. Kakashi glared at Guy, who glared in return. Guy gave a subtle shake of his head and Kakashi sighed, knowing that his longtime rival was right. I'm sorry, Naruto, Kakashi said in a bitter tone, just because he knew Guy was right didn't mean he had to like it. Why the hell won't you tell me? Naruto yelled, angry that he had been just teased with the opportunity to learn for certain who his father was. That responsibility does not belong to me. Naruto, I want to tell you who your father was. But I can't. It's an SS rank secret and I could end up in TNI for telling you as much as I did, Kakashi explained, his voice still holding a bitter edge. Naruto swallowed. More evidence, he thought. If you can't tell me, then who can, he asked, his voice still flat. He couldn't let them see just how eager he was and how badly he was panicking. Only Hinata-chan was allowed to see that part of him. Your godfather, Jiraiya of the Sannin, Kakashi answered. Kakashi had lost a great deal of respect for Jiraiya when the man had chosen work over family. Naruto gulped, his theory was almost irrefutable at this point, but he shoved the thoughts away. Don't get worked up. I could still be wrong, Naruto thought to himself, even though he didn't think so. Naruto distracted himself from the thoughts by shooting off questions at Kakashi, trying to get to know the man as a sensei but also as the older brother that he claimed to be. At first he started with the basics, where are you from, how old are you, what are your hobbies, and so on before they started to get deeper. Kakashi answered the questions like he was an open book, happy that his little brother was taking this seriously. He told Naruto about his academy days, about being the rookie of the year, and about being the son of Konoha's White Fang. He told him about making Chunin and eventually Jounin at a young age. Which led to an in-depth story of the last mission he had with his team as a whole and how he gained his Sharingan eye from his best friend. After that, he began to explain how he looked over him as an ANBU guard and how he nearly killed the ANBU member that had allowed two Uchihas to grab him. Naruto got a crash course on Kakashi's tragic life in 1 hour. Guy would occasionally pitch in or stop Kakashi from imparting too much information, but he mostly kept silent. He was glad that his rival and friend was finally getting the chance to speak face to face with the little brother he adored, and he didn't want to ruin the moment, for once. One last question, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto said after a short pause, thinking about all the new information he had just learned about the man. He was currently re-evaluating his entire opinion. Kakashi nodded, showing that he would answer if he could. You were the one who gave me the training scrolls, right? Kakashi chuckled and rubbed the back of his head, not surprised that Naruto had found him out. Yeah. That was me. Thanks, I guess. If it weren't for those scrolls, I'd only be a third as strong as I am, so thanks Kakashi-Nizen, Naruto said with a small smile. While Naruto didn't trust easily, Kakashi had earned his trust twice over if half of what he said was true. And Naruto knew it was true because Guy would be screaming how unyouthful lying was if Kakashi lied. So Naruto let Kakashi become one of the few people that he considered precious. In Naruto's eyes, Kakashi had been acting like a brother to him without him knowing it. Reassuring him when he was a kid, the scrolls, if he was right then Kakashi probably had a hand in the academy teacher's sabotage ending. While he didn't know Kakashi very well, he was hoping to. Kakashi's eye went wide in surprise at the added suffix. He had thought it would have taken much longer to be seen as a brother in Naruto's eyes. As the shock wore off, Kakashi adorned his signature eye smile. No problem, Naruto Antro. Off to the side, Guy had tears streaming down his face, muttering to himself how youthful family reunions are. After Guy stopped crying, Kakashi and Naruto headed back to Hinata and Kiba, while Guy returned to his own team. He was only there because Guy thought Kakashi wouldn't be able to resist spilling the beans about a few SS-rank secrets involving Naruto. Kakashi and Naruto walked back in silence, though it wasn't a heavy silence like before. It was a comfortable silence because both of them were happy. Kakashi had been accepted by Naruto, something that could take years to do, and even got to tell him a little about his parents. Naruto had just gained another precious person and learned that Kakashi had been there for him even longer than Hinata. Although he was still a little ticked off that the identities of his parents had been dangled in front of him, he didn't let that get him down. He was just going to find Jiraiya, confirm his theory, then ruthlessly shatter every bone in his body for abandoning him. They arrived to see Kiba take off in another attempt to master tree walking. He managed to get a little over halfway before he cursed loudly because he began to slip. Naruto chuckled slightly at Hinata's slightly annoyed expression. He guessed that Kiba had been stuck at the same place since they left. Kiba, your chakra surges the moment you get an inch higher. You need to stay calm, Hinata said in a caring, yet scolding tone. A tone that she often used on Naruto, though it lacked the same familiarity. Sorry, Kiba grumbled before he got up to make another attempt, but he saw Kakashi and Naruto. You two are done already? That was a quick taijutsu lesson, he said in a disbelieving tone. He now thought Kakashi had lied to him and kept Hinata and him out of a secret. Naruto was a quick learner, Kakashi said lazily with a shrug, now reverting to his usual amount of effort in being believable. Hinata ignored Kakashi and sent a questioning gaze at Naruto. He gave her a smirk, sending the message of, "I'll tell you later," with his eyes. Hinata nodded, showing that she understood. Kakashi watched the small exchange and was overcome with the sense of nostalgia. He hasn't seen two people so in sync since Sensei and Kushina. Liar. You two are keeping secrets from us. There's no secrets in a pack. Kiba roared, ignoring the fact that his sister and mother often kept secrets from him. I doubt that, Naruto said in a bored tone as he walked over to Hinata. Kiba wanted to argue, but, much like his sister, he knew that Naruto wouldn't tell him unless he wanted to. So he settled for turning around with a loud humph and saying, "Fine then. I didn't want to know anyways, ya team." Naruto scoffed. Whatever. He turned to Hinata. I'm heading out since my lesson is over. Tell Hanabi to be here around 4, he said with a smirk. Normally, he'd stay even though he was done for the day, but he needed to be alone for a little while to sort through the revelations. He planned on talking about it with Hinata later, but right now he just needed to be alone. A flash of concern flashed over Hinata's face. She recognized the smirk that Naruto used when he was dealing with something troublesome, but then the look disappeared and she nodded before saying, I will. Bye, Naruto-kun. Naruto said that he'd tell her later, so she'd just have to wait until then. Naruto waved goodbye before disappearing in swirl of feathers. A particular shunshin that he had created a few years ago. With Hanabi. Hanabi practically skipped all the way down to training ground 7. Why shouldn't she be happy? Today was the day that she took a major step forward to get out of her sister's shadow. She knew Naruto may be reluctant to train her as well as he trained with Hinata, but she was determined to prove that she was better than Hinata. Once she did, Naruto would have no choice but to train her more seriously, and then she was sure to finally surpass her sister. Hanabi was bubbling with excitement by the time she reached training ground 7, however, her bubble of excitement was popped when she saw a dopey-looking kid her age by the training posts. She approached the boy and in a tone that made it clear she was a Hyuga said, What are you doing here? My sensei and I have this training ground reserved. Leave. Konohamaru narrowed his eyes. Oi! You can't just tell me to leave. And I'm here to train with boss, he answered angrily. Hanabi scoffed. I can tell you to do what I want, idiot. I'm a Hyuga, she yelled angrily, as if Konohamaru should drop to his knees and crawl away. It was Konohamaru's turn to scoff. I know your clan, bunch of teams. All of ya. Konohamaru insulted as he turned away with a huff. A series of tick marks covered Hanabi's forehead as she raised a fist. "Don't insult my clan, peasant," she roared before she slammed her fist down on Konohamaru's helmeted head. Konohamaru slammed into the ground, but Hanabi paid no mind to that. She had just punched someone. She punched the brat. That was new to her. She had always used her gentle fist style before, so she never had any reason to use her fists. So why did she do it now? Why was it her first instinct to hit the peasant with a closed fist? Her musings were interrupted when she heard a hearty chuckle behind her. She whipped around and saw it was Naruto. "Naruto-sensei," she greeted with a happy note in her voice before she sent a small glare at Konohamaru. "I was just dealing with this loser so we could begin training," she said coldly. "What cha calling boss sensei for? And who are you calling an idiot, idiot?" Konohamaru yelled before turning to Naruto. "Tell this pale-eyed weirdo to get out of here so we can train," he demanded, sending a glare at Hanabi. "Seems like I was right, this is going to be amusing," Naruto thought with mirth. He needed it too. Ever since Kakashi had mentioned his father, he couldn't stop thinking about the odds of his father being the yandame. They looked almost identical. The yandame was a moral man, so he wouldn't grab some kid at random. Kakashi told him that his father was immensely powerful. At this point the odds were almost overwhelming. However, Naruto refused to jump to conclusions. There was always a chance that he could be wrong and he didn't want to think about it. He always shoved the thoughts of his roots away simply because he didn't know how he would react if his father was really the yandame. "Sorry Konohamaru, but I won't do that." Konohamaru looked like he was about to loudly protest, but Naruto turned to a smug-looking Hanabi. "And you should stop being so mean to your training partner." There was silence. "What?" the two students yelled before glaring at each other. "Stop copying me," they both yelled in unison, but before they could yell at each other again, Naruto grabbed both of them by the scruff of their shirts. "Didn't I just say to stop fighting?" he asked rhetorically. "Why do I have to train with her, boss?" Konohamaru complained. "Shut up, weirdo!" Hanabi yelled, taking another swipe at Konohamaru, but Naruto pulled them further apart before she made contact. Naruto simply sighed as the two continued to bicker. "You shut up or I'll tell my grandpa," Konohamaru threatened, causing Hanabi to roll her eyes. "What's your grandpa going to do? Drool on me?" she sneered. "My grandpa's the Hokage, you jerk." Konohamaru roared as he lunged at Hanabi, but like before, Naruto kept them separate. Hanabi's eyes widened in surprise at that. This loser was the grandson of the esteemed Hokage? The god of shinobi? The professor? The hero of the first two shinobi wars? Hanabi scared. Then the Savethetub clan has fallen dramatically, monkey boy. Before Konohamaru could respond, Naruto gave them both a shake. "I said that's enough fighting," he said in a serious tone. Both of them quieted down, mumbling, "Sorry boss/sensei. I'm training you two out of the goodness of my heart, but I expect you to listen to me or I'll tell you to hit the road," he threatened as he dropped the two children. "Now apologize." They both scared as they found great interest in their shoes. "I'm sorry," they said in unison, but by no stretch on the imagination was it heartfelt. Naruto sighed again as he put his hands on his hips. "It's a start at least. Now, give me 10,000 push-ups," he commanded. Both of the children gaped at Naruto. "Are you crazy, boss? We can't do 10,000 push-ups. We'd die." Konohamaru exclaimed as he frantically waved his arms up and down. Hanabi nodded in agreement. "You can't?" Naruto said in a puzzled voice. That throws out what I had planned for today. Alright. Get in push-up position then, you wimps," he said as he crossed his arms. After the two did what they were told, Naruto used his feet to make a few adjustments, but when he was satisfied he said, "Begin, and don't stop until I tell you to." He watched as they did the repetitive motion over and over again and he quickly became bored, so he let his mind wander. Naruto started to think about a range of things, what he and Hinata were going to do after this, the revelation of him having an older brother, and lastly, he started to ponder how he would react if he did confirm his suspicions. Despite knowing he really should, Naruto didn't hate the yandere. He knew that a Hokage had to put the village first, before family and friends and anything else. Hokages had to love the village more than life itself, and sometimes they had to make sacrifices to protect the village. Naruto was one of those sacrifices. Naruto didn't think the yandere had been happy that he was forced to seal Kurama inside of him. He didn't think he wanted to either. There were simply no other options. So Naruto didn't hate him. He was simply protecting the village he loved from harm, and Naruto was a necessary sacrifice to protect the village. He wasn't happy that he was chosen, but Naruto understood. Heck, sealing a tailed beast inside of a child paled in comparison to some of the things Naruto would do to keep Hinata safe and happy. What Naruto didn't know was if he could forgive the man as a father. Naruto didn't know if he could forgive his hero. The Yellow Flash, the hero of the Third Shinobi War, the only man who's ever had a flea on sight warning, the man so powerful that when Konoha told the world that he killed an unkillable beast, the world believed them. He was also the man who sealed the greatest tailed beast into his newborn son. The man who sacrificed his own flesh and blood to protect a bunch of narrow-minded fools who fear and hate everything they don't understand. That's what Naruto didn't think he was capable of forgiving, and that's why he always shoved away his thoughts and feelings whenever he thought about the man who could be his father. Naruto didn't want to hate the man who he spent years trying to surpass. So Naruto pushed down his feelings before he even knew what they were. They could be forgiveness or they could be undying hatred. Naruto didn't know and almost hoped that he never did. Him demanding Kakashi to tell him had been a moment of weakness. The temptation had been too great and Naruto had given in to curiosity. Naruto's attention snapped back to reality as Konohamaru loudly fell on the ground, unable to continue. Hanabi did the same a second later. What? You're already done? How many was that? Naruto asked in a ridiculing tone. Both of the children were huffing and massaging their sore arms. I did 64. Konohamaru yelled, sending a mocking glare at Hanabi. Hanabi looked embarrassed before looking away. 62, she said between clenched teeth. No wonder father thinks I'm a failure. I can't even beat Monkey Boy in push-ups, she thought in disgrace, shame welling in her chest. Wow, you both totally suck. Naruto commented as he cleaned his ear with his pinky. We do not suck, and I did more push-ups than her. Konohamaru yelled as he shot up and pointed at Hanabi, completely forgetting his weariness. Naruto scared. You do too suck, and you're forgetting that on average women have less brute strength than men do. So technically, she did like 10 more push-ups than you. Not that it really matters, you both still suck something fierce, he said in a bored tone as he crossed his arms. Hanabi sent a cocky smile over at Konohamaru before a thought struck her. How many push-ups could you do when you were our age, sensei? Naruto seemed to think about it. With weights, a couple thousand. Without, 15,000 or so. What? That's impossible. Konohamaru screamed. There was simply no way. Boss was tough for sure, but what he was saying had to be a lie. Naruto winced at the sudden loud noise. It is too. My body heals no matter what I put it through. Doesn't matter if it's a sprained ankle, broken wrist, or a missing arm, my body will always heal sooner or later. Because of that I could train myself harder than you can imagine, he explained as if the hellish training was nothing. Naruto-sensei, do you think you could train us like you did yourself? Hanabi asked, thinking that Naruto's training would be the quickest path to surpassing Hinata. Yeah, boss. Make us strong like you. Absolutely not. Naruto barked, suddenly turning serious. He broadened his stance and Hanabi couldn't help but to think that Naruto suddenly resembled her father. However, Naruto seemed a lot scarier right now. Konohamaru audibly gulped, completely unnerved by boss's sudden change in personality. Why not be boss? He asked with a stutter. If I put you through the training Hinata-chan and I did, then you'd both die before the day was even over, Naruto said in a serious tone. That struck a chord in Hanabi. If my sister can do it, then I can too. Train me like you did her, she demanded. If Hinata could do it, then she could too. Naruto's heavy gaze fell on Hanabi, and Hanabi resisted the urge to drop to the ground and curl up in a ball. It felt like someone had just strapped training weights to her chest and shoulders and set them to max. This is just pressure from his presence? What is this guy? Hanabi thought in panic as the air around her suddenly became scarce. I told you no. You'll die, Naruto said in an authoritative voice, sounding like the Hokage when he was serious. Hanabi clenched her hands and teeth. This wasn't how she planned for this to go. Naruto was supposed to see that she had more talent than her sister and train her accordingly. Her plan wasn't working. Then why did Hinata survive? I'm better than her. I can do it, she roared, using a commanding tone that only belonged to nobles who weren't getting what they wanted. Konohamaru gulped for Hanabi. Boss was really scary right now, and he didn't think it was a good idea to yell at him. Though, in a way, he admitted that Hanabi had guts for standing up to Naruto. Maybe she was kinda cool, for a girl. Because the two of you lack resolve, Naruto said as he dropped his hands to his sides. He felt kinda bad for scaring the two kids to the point they looked like they were about to wet themselves, but what he said was true. If they attempted his training schedule, then their odds of lasting more than a day and surviving were practically at zero. Some would think that he may be exaggerating, but he wasn't. Naruto expected those who participated in his training to push themselves beyond their limits. These two didn't have the will to shatter their limits and keep going. Because of that, they would either die or be crippled. I have resolve. Hanabi argued, taking a stance of defiance. She refused to be in her sister's shadow any longer. Naruto sked. Yes, you have some resolve, but it's pathetic. It's like glass, easily shattered, Naruto said in a dismissive tone. Hanabi clenched her fists until they bled. You don't know anything about my resolve, she yelled. Her sensei sighed. You want to surpass Hinata-chan and gain your father's acknowledgement, Naruto said lazily before he turned to Konohamaru, who gulped. And you want to prove to the village that you're not the honorable grandson but your own man. Not the worst motivation, but it's still weak. Before either of them could defend their motivations, Naruto sighed loudly before digging in his pocket. Man, this is a lot less amusing than I had thought it'd be, he commented before he pulled out a small green scroll. The same one he found on his kitchen counter many years ago. I had a feeling something like this would happen. He tossed the small green to Hanabi, who looked between the scroll and him in surprise and curiosity. What's this, Naruto-sensei? It's a scroll, he deadpanned in a playful tone, doing another complete 180 with his personality. He chuckled lightly as he saw both of their "we can see that" expressions before explaining further. I can't be here every day to train you too, so in that scroll is your schedule. I don't expect you to be able to do all of what it tells to do, but do as much as you can. Then you try to do more tomorrow and so on, understood, he explained and received nods from the two. Good, now I'm off to spend time with Hinata-chan, try not to kill each other, okay? I don't need the headache, he said as he turned to walk away. Suddenly he stopped. And since I'm in a good mood, I'll give you a hint about how to strengthen your resolves. A selfish resolve is a weak resolve, Naruto said in a sagely tone before disappearing in a swirl of feathers. Hanabi and Konohamaru shared a look, both thinking the same thing. If a selfish one is the weakest, then what's the strongest? With Hinata. Lord Byakuya is visiting next week and he'll be bringing his son with him. Akira wants to spend some time with you, Hayashi informed his eldest daughter at the dinner table. It was only the two of them because Hanabi was out training. Hinata barely resisted the urge to groan and repeatedly slam her face into the table at her father's words. If it was one thing about being a noble that she absolutely despised, her hatred of her clan's traditions notwithstanding, was the fact that noble females were married off like cattle to improve ties with other noble families. Very rarely did a noble female ever get to marry for love. Their families auctioned them off for profit, sacrificing them to a life of a loveless marriage to improve standing. She once had a friend in the main branch that was married off to a fat, 40-year-old wealthy merchant when she was 10. That girl had killed herself last year. Hinata was no exception in the world of politics. Her father was better than most. He wouldn't pressure her to marry a certain man or force her to go on a number of dates with her suitors if she said she didn't feel comfortable with them. However, he still made her go on dates with countless men hoping that one of them would catch her eye. She tried telling him that she wasn't interested in anyone, but he did not listen. He still forced her to spend time with the sleaze nobles because it could hurt the Hyuga reputation if they refused. However, she was happy that her father was sending the suitors her way instead of Hanabi's way. That way Hanabi would be safe from corruption of politics. Oh, how she loathed politics. I see, she responded. She was now thinking how Naruto would be getting her out of this one. Hayashi nodded. I will have a dress prepared for you according to what the date will entail. I know I do not have to say this, but I expect you to behave befitting of a Hyuga heiress, Hayashi said, a tone that lacked warmth. Hinata nodded again, hoping the conversation would just end so she could go meet up with Naruto-kun. They hadn't really had a chance to spend time alone since graduation, and he was taking her out to do something fun. Due to a certain outside influence, I will be assigning a guard to make sure you two are both undisturbed, and they will be given permission to use deadly force, Hayashi finished, taking note of the quick succession of emotions that passed over his daughter's face. Surprise, anger, outrage, disappointment, then lastly, a blank mask. Hayashi was proud that his daughter had almost mastered controlling her emotions, though he wasn't happy with the ones he saw. I understand this displeases you, but it is your duty to the clan as heiress. You will put aside your personal feelings and do what is expected of you, Hayashi said in a tone that brooked no argument. Hinata nodded stiffly. This was the burden she shouldered in order to keep the little sister that hated her guts safe. The world was a truly unkind place. Good, Hayashi said before he stood and left the room. As the servant Hyuga went to pick up the dishes left by the clan head, she heard a loud snap. She looked over in alarm and, to her surprise, saw that Hinata had broken her chopsticks with furious tears stinging at her eyes. I hate that man, she said in a barely audible whisper, but the servant heard it. Feeling daring, she set down the dishes and placed a tender hand on the trembling girl. If I may, Hinata-sama, you are just angry right now. We both know your blonde knight will rescue you, she said with a light smile. Hinata wiped away her forming tears before smiling at the unnamed Hyuga. You think so? Of course, Hinata-sama. Naruto-san is as stubborn as a mule and harder to move than a mountain. He won't let some pesky guard get in the way of his princess, she said with a small giggle. She was poking fun at both of them, for both of them were completely oblivious to the other's obvious affection. Hinata turned an unhealthy shade of red. Princess? Why you think? Was as far as she got before she slumped over unconscious. A few hours later. The sun was on its way to setting as Hinata stood atop of the yandame's head. It was their usual meeting place and their favorite spot. Despite the bad memories attached to the place, they both decided to focus on the good memories. This was the place where Hinata took her first stand, and this was where Naruto found his first true friend. Where are you, Naruto-kun? She murmured before two hands covered her eyes. Right here, Hinata-chan, he whispered loudly, a grin audible in his tone. Hinata found herself smiling as she swatted the hands away. Naruto let out a quick laugh. Can you guess what I brought? He asked in a teasing tone as he walked backwards to the bench at the top of the hill. Cinnamon buns? She asked hopefully, completely forgetting about the day's burdens at the mention of the sweet pastry. Nope. Hinata's hopes fell. If it wasn't a cinnamon bun, then she didn't care. Naruto chuckled as he saw Hinata's suddenly sad look. Sorry, but the bakery was sold out, and I know you don't like the store brand kind that much, so I got. He waved his hands in front of Hinata's widely smiling face. Out of nowhere, a gallon tub of vanilla ice cream with 2 spoons suddenly appeared in his hands. Hinata beamed at the display of magic. She once thought about using her Byakugan to see how he did it, but she decided against it. She didn't want to ruin the mystery that she enjoyed. Naruto gave his friend a foxy grin as she began to clap lightly before both of them headed to the bench, and before long they were scooping up ice cream. How did Hanabi do today? Hinata asked as she ate her favorite flavor of ice cream. I dunno, I left them my first scroll after I insulted their pathetic resolves, Naruto said in a casual tone as he took another scoop. Hinata nodded sadly. Do you think that'll work? She asked. She knew Naruto had a reason for attacking her sister's resolve to defeat her. She trusted Naruto fully and knew he wouldn't do such a thing without good reason. Naruto seemed to think about it. I think so. If she finally realizes that surpassing you is a stupid goal, hopefully she'll finally figure out how much you love her and what you do to protect her, he said with a sigh. Hinata sighed as well, hoping that this would finally bridge the giant chasm between her family. You're sighing a lot more than usual, Naruto observed. Something upset you, he said, a glint entering his eye that promised years of pain for the offender. Hinata suppressed another sigh as she began to explain how her father was putting more pressure on her to take the dates seriously. She left out the part where she almost broke down crying, of course, but she knew Naruto already knew without her saying anything. Naruto's heart clenched painfully as he suddenly lost his appetite for the almost empty container. He wanted to march over to the Hyuga compound and rip Hayashi's head out his ass, but he wouldn't for two reasons. First, Hinata made him promise not to after he almost did when she told him about the first date. And second, he knew he really had no say in Hinata's love life. Despite all his wishes, they were just friends. Sure, he interfered with her dates, but that's because she didn't like them. It would be only a matter of time before she would ask him to not interfere with a date. That would be the day when Hinata began to pay less attention to him and more on her fiancé. He would steadily be forgotten by the person he cared most about. He would get shelved like an old toy and eventually his parts would wear down until he broke like every other toy. However, if it meant becoming Hinata's broken toy to protect her and if it made her happy, then it would be his burden to bear. He would suffer in silence for the rest of his life if it meant Hinata would keep smiling. Hinata noticed her friend's sudden shift in mood. What's wrong, Naruto-kun? She asked, her eyes narrowing in concern. Naruto immediately masked his sadness with his usual cocky smile. It's nothing, Hinata-chan. Just thinking how I'ma bail you out, he lied. Hinata frowned slightly. Naruto rarely lied to her and she knew every time he did. She would have asked him what was really wrong, but it was almost as if his eyes were begging her not to. Hinata wanted to sigh again, but she respected her friend's privacy. I'm sure it will be elaborate and hilarious. By the way, you never told me what Kakashi-sensei wanted to talk to you about, she said, switching topics, thinking that it was the topic that was depressing Naruto. Though, she had no idea why it would. Not much, only that he's my unofficial older brother that looked out for me since birth. Oh, and he's the guy that gave us the scrolls, Naruto said in a casual tone as he gazed upwards. 3, 2, 1. What? Hinata yelled loudly, for her at least. How did you not lead with that? She continued before poking him lightly in the shoulder. Why didn't you say something earlier? That's way more important than my father trying to set me up with some noble. Naruto shrugged as he rubbed his shoulder. He didn't need to express it in words, but as far as he was concerned, Hinata's problems always came first. I dunno. Slipped my mind, I guess, he said lamely as he threw his arms behind his head to support his still horizontal head. Hinata's gaze softened and she looked incredibly sad. It was moments when Naruto was like this that she hated. While she was thankful for the fact that he put her first before anything and everything, she wished he would put himself first sometimes. It made her feel like a terrible friend when he had just received life-altering news, but he kept it hidden so she could complain about her dysfunctional family. She tried to be a supporting friend, like he was to her, but when he refused to show her his problems, she couldn't help but feel like she was taking advantage of Naruto. He did everything he could for her and she could do so little in return for him. It's almost time. Naruto's voice said, breaking her from her depressed thoughts. Hinata's attention went to the village as the sun began to dip below the village wall. Hinata and Naruto shared a grin as they began to count down. 5. Naruto began. 4. Hinata continued. 3, 2, 1. As Naruto said the final number, the sun dipped below the village wall. the exact moment the number left Naruto's mouth. The village was plunged into a moment of darkness. Banzai, both Naruto and Hinata yelled as they jumped up from their seat, sending the ice cream and spoons flying. Like with the sun, the village lit back up in a breathtaking mixture of colored lights the moment the word left their lips. Naruto and Hinata both shared a laugh as they grinned at each other like fools before settling back down and began discussing what Kakashi and Naruto talked about. However, when they sat down, they sat a bit closer than they were before. Neither of them minded.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.